YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. We've got this FMS Ranger 1220 millimeters. Excited to bring this to you. We got a 1300 3S in here, pretty much all the way up to the front. And we're running an AR 631 with safe and AS3X. So without further ado, guys, 10-minute flight timer set. We should be able to go a little bit longer. We do have flaperons. And we're ready to do this thing. We'll do a little back taxi. And we're gonna take off left to right, a little bit of crosswind. I'm about 45 degrees to it right now. Okay, here we go. Take off flaps dialed in. Oh yeah, out of the flaps. 50% throttle there. Need a little bit of elevator trim to keep the nose up. I might have that battery just a hair forward to where it should be. Boy, that thing looks good in the sky. 100% throttle. Lots of power. Looks beautiful. Very good ups. The AS3X has this thing locked in. It's about 50% throttle, 40% throttle, 30% throttle and still upside down, no problem. Okay, 50% to maintain, 100% throttle, brings it around. That's pretty good power. Still haven't adjusted my trim because I've been screwing around too much. Out of the flaps still also. Going over the cornfield and around back. Okay, that's full up trim. I still have plenty of elevator. I wonder if we're just a little bit nose heavy. It's probably what it is. Okay, we're gonna try our landing flaps there. Okay, and we got a little bit, I think we need to make an adjustment on that. Let's try. Full landing flaps, let's try for a landing. Right over the power lines and around. Very good roll authority still. Go around here and try to take a landing with the runway. Oh, we tip stalled it right into the ground. Let's see what type of damage we sustained. Looks like a whole lot of nothing, which is what I was exactly expecting. Yep, nothing. All right, let's put it back on the runway. Okay, so I think we need to push that battery back just so we can get that thing to not be so nose heavy. We're gonna go like halfway back actually. It did test fine on the center of gravity marks at, I think it was 40 and 50 millimeters.
I think so.
You have to watch the Unbox build and radio setup. So we're gonna run back here into the shade and look at our elevator. The elevator trim is all the way down. See? All the way down.
Okay.
All the way down. Okay. Flap system. I'm gonna go opposite of what we got. Sometimes with flaperons, we gotta go opposite. Just depends on the plane. All right, I wanna try this again. And, okay, everything is working. We still have tons of throw, see? Even with full up elevator trim, we're still good. Okay, here we go. Oh yeah, it feels way better now. Look, it's trimming way up now. There we go, we're centered now. Look at this, guys. See if you can see the trim. It's right at the even point. Okay, safe. Roll left. Safe. Pull up. Safe. That's our limited bank angles. I'll turn around and show you the other limits. Nice coordinated turns, no problems. Limited down. That's pretty good limited down. Pretty good limited up. Limited roll. Pretty good. And then we're into AS3X mode again. Feels really good. That battery was a little bit too far forward at the beginning. Wow, that thing is rock solid now. Just absolutely rock solid. We're not totally dead calm. We got about a 3 to 4 mile an hour wind over our right shoulder. And a nice touch and go for you there. Pretty fast touch and go actually for a maiden. Next to the Eagle Killing Zone, full speed pass. Boy, that thing is good.
Looks really good.
Cornholes are a little bit reserved, but it'll do it. Okay, now we're gonna go for some flat and level so we can test our flaperons. Okay, about 50% throttle here, relaxing into the turn. And right over the tree line, we're gonna click on takeoff flaps. No elevator input. Landing flaps, still no elevator input. Maybe 1% elevator more needed. But otherwise, we've got it, guys. Man, the upside down flight performance of this plane is just amazing. It's really solid. I'm not big on upside down flight performance, by the way. It's just one of those things that if you have symmetry of flight, especially on a trainer, that's pretty uncommon. Nice. Okay, let's go check it. Well, before we check it, let's go to the flap mode. So this is one thing you guys have come to expect from Brian Phillips RC here, is that we are gonna share our adjustments. Let's do 12 and then 18, okay? So 0, -12, -18, and that's gonna match us up to what we did in the Unbox build radio setup part. So far, the master gain adjustments right in the middle for the AS3X. We flipped the plane over twice on both landings. Not because of the plane's fault, I just caught the edge of the grass. This springy nose gear seems to be holding up okay. I feel like the flaperons they're okay. It definitely makes a difference in flight performance, but it's not as good as inboard flaps would be. Okay, so let's try taking off here again. Camera crew, if you just want to work your way back, you good? Mm-hmm. Okay, take off flaps now. Oh yeah. Okay, we're gonna go back to the shades. We don't have exposure issues. I'll just go up here in a loiter. So I feel like the safe is just solid. Now let's play with the gain a little bit. I'm gonna turn the gain all the way up on my knob, and we'll just show you kind of what it looks like. Oh geez, it's rock solid, guys. Look at this. It's on rails. Okay, now let's turn the gain all the way off. Okay, so the gain's all the way down. Cornholes still look about the same. And safe. That is just awesome, guys. Boy, this plane flies really nice, folks. With or without stabilizer. I got the stabilizer all the way down. There's 50% stabilizer now. I feel like on a plane like this, you could probably get away without a stabilizer in the calm, but you get into some windy conditions as a beginner, it's gonna be really handy to have that. Let's go around the bug zapper and in front. Well, so far, super impressed with this plane, guys. Trying to see if it'll do it. It's not super powerful, but it's certainly not weak. The 850 is a lot more insufficient on power compared to this bad boy. This thing's still considered a trainer, I think, but it's more of like an aerobatic trainer, if you will. The 850 is definitely not going to give you the same flight experience as this 1220, but I would say that the 1220 equipped with the AR 631 or AR 630 without the antenna would be a very, very good matchup. If you really want to get nuts on it, put yourself a 40 amp Avian ESC, if such a thing exists, and then you could do your reverse thrust as well. Guys, just loving the way this thing flies upside down. It's weird, I like never fly upside down on purpose. We'll just kind of come out of this corkscrew here. And stall turn it. Kind of a shallow stall turn, but whatever. Beautiful, guys. Okay, let's try some landing flaps here. Let's just see how it flies the bull with landing flaps. You want to kind of come over to the edge there? Okay, there's our timer for 10 minutes. I'm not feeling any hesitation on power at all. This Gen 1 rather, Smart 1300 3S. Okay, so you guys may be aware, with flaperons, you do tend to have planes that want to slip out from under you because you're out on the outboard portion of the wing. Now, I'm not saying that a stall is necessarily that much different on flaperon equipped planes, but I found that especially in steep banks like this, they're a lot less forgiving because you don't have that air flowing across them from the prop. So if you go real slow, you'll stall, you'll get that separation a little bit earlier than you might otherwise. We are in full landing flap mode configuration here. Ooh, I don't want to go chase it, so I'm going to take back off. I am going to get a perfect landing with this plane. I don't understand why I can't find the middle of the runway today. Let's try this, guys. Go out a little bit further and then just relax into it. There we go. Ground handling is a little bit lacking. Mostly because I don't think I have my nose wheel trim. Look at that beautiful roll, folks. Man, it looks good. We're about 60% throttle. Very coordinated turn here. We got about 10% rudder mixed in. We pretty much get the roll where we want and we don't mess with it. We just have our thumb up against the stick for corrections in case it starts to stall. So I don't know if you guys can see. I'll go into that same maneuver and you guys can just watch my sticks for a minute. I kind of start the roll and then I get out of the, I get onto the other direction, okay? So you see I'm at that steep bank. I get it in the steep bank and then I have my thumb over here riding ready for correction, okay? So I get it banked. Once I'm banked, I go to elevator and back pull. Then I use the rudder for fine tune. See? Fine tune left, fine tune right. Okay, full throttle. So our timer did go off at 10 minutes, but I'm just gonna keep flying for a minute because I trust this battery is gonna do fine for a minute longer. Love the checkerboard on the top. Outboard portion of the wing really helps with visibility. Okay, takeoff flaps this time. We'll do a couple more slower passes here. Of course, takeoff flaps are not gonna make as big of an impact. And by the way, outboard flaperons on an outboard aileron equipped aircraft are always going to be inferior, in my opinion, to an inboard flap. To add inboard flaps on this plane would cost maybe $15. You might need a servo extension cord and you're gonna need some sort of a servo. I think the other day I had somebody asking for a recommendation and I think I was giving him one that was like 15 bucks or 10 bucks or 11 bucks. And of course you can get cheaper if you go out and really search, but I'd like to have a Metal Gear servo so I could do one, but you could also just do two. Maybe let's call it $50. You could add flaps and have a flap on each side. And yes, you actually could. I'm gonna keep this nice and low until I identify the manned aircraft that's going overhead. He's about 3,000 feet, we're good. We're at about 6 feet. The disparity is right where we want it. 2,500 feet of difference or greater. I think that's fair. Full landing flaps. Funny thing is, it's the same type of plane. See? What do we have?
The little speck there.
Oh no, he's got retracts on that thing. It might be a Cessna 150. I thought there was one that had retracts. So, in my haste to see the manned aircraft, I put the tip into the ground. Camera crew, if you'd hold this. But just so you can see, no damage. And then you'll note that the nose gear did its thing, which is pretty cool. Can we call that a retract?
Temporary retract.
Okay, so we're 4 minutes and 16, 17, 18. We've been on the ground for a few minutes. Let's go for another takeoff and landing here. Guys, I'm really enjoying flying this plane. Very, very consistent flight. See that? That's no input. I just got to adjust that nose wheel. I did have to force that up. I wonder if my little tricycle tip over there might have pushed the battery forward a little bit. Get that battery back a little bit. It'll help with your flight performance. It'll wake up the elevator a little bit for you. Oh man, love looking at that with that shadow on the ground. It's so funny. I talk a lot about shadows, and many times we're filming in the late afternoon to early evening, but our weather has been so windy, so we actually had to get out of bed to film. Ugh.
Ugh.
But look how beautiful it is though. I love seeing the shadow on the ground there. It gives a real sense for your position spatially. And without having that beautiful sunset in the background, you can really see what's going on. Look at the shadow as we go across the corn. I just love it. By the way, that corn is huge. In case you guys aren't from around an area where corn grows, that corn's probably 15 feet tall. Yeah. Maybe 12 to 15 feet tall, depending on where you are. And yes, you can get lost in those cornfields. Man, ground effect will carry this plane for 6 miles. I don't know if you guys could tell that. I was out of the throttle. Oh, look at this. Check this out. Oop, battery. Dang it, of course. Mother Nature was protecting itself. Hey, we're good?
Yep.
Yeah, baby. That's a 37-foot wide approach, and we're at an angle, I'd say a 30-degree angle.
Yeah.
Throttle cut's not on. She's dead.
Oh.
6 minutes 14 plus 10. I would say 15 minutes is good. I was just gonna go visit this guy up here.
There was a hawk over there.
This guy was just chilling.
It came out of nowhere.
I know, it was funny. It's kind of a big thing to come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So as you could see, super, super good flight performance. Only complaints on this plane are the same exact complaints we had during the Unbox build and radio setup, which is that the nose gear is significantly uglier than it has to be, in my opinion. If you would hold that for me. Let's go ahead and whip out the battery. We did use this thing up, guys. We did. We used up the battery. So 1300 3S, it's not like it's puffed or anything. It's just gone. There may be a low voltage cutoff set a little bit high on the ESC. It's kind of my guess. Do you have the XBC?
I do.
Okay. Can you grab that for me? I'll just lay you down there. Okay, here we go. We're gonna stick this in here. 9. Whoa, 9. 3.2, 3.2, 3.0. Okay, so
I'd say
12, 13 minutes max.
Yeah.
And guys, you got to remember, we've gotten some really long flight times on the Smart Packs. So I would say that that might be even pushing it a little bit. So 10 minutes is probably a good flight time, and I would be able to respect it. This does come equipped with an XT60. Full disclosure, we're using an IC3. They pair up just fine. It's a little bit hard to plug them in sometimes, but it'll do the trick. So you should be good to go. But otherwise, guys, the FMS Ranger 1.2, that is the true maiden flight. We waited for some decent conditions. We could have flown it in heavier wind. I think we would have been fine. Okay, so I mentioned the complaint that this is ugly, and it is, but it'll probably save your tail a few times. That's one of the points that all Cessna 150s, 170s, 172s, 180s, whatever it is, all the model planes that are tricycles always seem to have problems with these nose gear because people get into them thinking they're going to be easy to fly, and then they come in and abuse and use them like I do. So sometimes it's not necessarily knowing how to do it, it's about doing it. So also the spinner and prop leave a little bit something to be desired. We had to balance the prop, which was not a big deal, but the spinner was really where my issue was because it's a clip-on style and it vibrated a little bit. So we got that adjusted with some tape, nothing fancy. It's not meant to be a permanent fix, but we'll show you how to do that in a pinch at the end of the Unbox build and radio setup. And yes, the looks are really good on this plane. Love the fact that it's got a top load tray here.
Yep.
Receiver location was somewhat ambiguous, okay? If you want to build this plane for cheap, you could use a 4-channel, an AR410. You won't get flaperons in that configuration because you're only going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 channels, right? If you're doing flaperons, but this is only a 4-channel plane. It does come with a Y cable here, and you'd be able to plop that receiver wherever because it's not going to be AS3X equipped. And just seeing how well that flew, you could probably get away with it without safe and AS3X. But in my opinion, I just like the feeling of locked in, and I like the feeling of not having to have a perfectly calm day to get out and fly a plane, especially a trainer. I would highly recommend going with the AR 630 or 631. 631 gets you the antenna. Our antenna, incidentally, sticks out the wing right there.
Oh, that's right.
So anyway, we did our receiver right on the wing. So you'll see if you stick around. And please do, guys, stay tuned. If you want to buy this plane, help support our channel, it's in the video description below. A little bit of the commissions that we earn from this, well, a small percentage of the sale price gets sent to us in form of a commission. And then basically the companies that we're affiliated help to support us financially, and then you don't have to, which is really nice. If you'd prefer to cut out the middleman and you want to support us financially, we have PayPal and Patreon. PayPal, of course, has almost no fees. And then Patreon carries quite a few fees, but it is a monthly support thing. If you want it and it's more convenient for you, we're fine with that. We just want to let you guys know, full disclosure, what's going on. And if you don't want to support us in those ways, we totally get it. Maybe you guys aren't in a position to do it, but I can definitely tell you this plane is great. The best way to support us is to buy the stuff that we review that you find you're interested in. Not the things you don't like. Don't buy what you don't like. Buy what you love. And then basically you're getting what you were going to get anyway. And then we just help to bring it to you. Maybe we help to close the deal if you're on the fence on one of these deals. But this FMS plane is amazing. I really like it. How does it compare to the Cessna, the Carbon Z Cessna 150T? It is literally half the plane because it's so much smaller.
Yep.
That could be both the difference between an everyday flyer and a never-day flyer for most of you. So I'm serious. This thing is great. You can plop it in the car fully assembled, no problem. And it's solid. It's sturdy. It's not going to be super flexy and everything, but it's very strong and robust. So I think it's going to hold up well. You saw we flipped it over twice. No, those weren't on purpose. I did those on accident because I dragged the wheel off. And part of the reason I dragged the wheel off is because the nose wheel does leave a little something to be desired. When you get light on your nose gear on a tricycle, when you have your CG right, okay, which by the way, I'm going to show you that real quick. With the battery all the way forward, okay, it tests nose heavy in the back hole, and in the front hole, I would say even. So if you push that thing back, you're going to get better performance. You see where I started was here, and that's really good for a beginner that's not trying to do a lot of aerobatic stuff. Push that thing all the way back. Let's show you how nice the CG still is, okay? That will wake up the plane, let you do more stuff that you would normally not do as a beginner necessarily. So the further you have that thing forward, on the back hole, we're still nose heavy. On the front hole, we would be just favoring barely tail heavy. So I would say anywhere in that opening, you can fly whatever suits your taste. If you don't have a stabilizer, pull it all the way forward and then take that elevator. You might want to go one hole down and set your expo another 15% higher. And you're going to get similar flight performance without having the weakness on the elevator. Because you remember when I trimmed it all the way down, I still had plenty of throw, but I just wasn't getting the output. I don't like flying around with my trim all the way at the bottom. It can cause other issues, namely with AS3X. The other thing too is when you get done with AS3X, you want to be flying, on your first flight, you want to fly flat and level and let go of the sticks. That allows the AS3X receiver to relearn what neutral looks like, okay? You have to do that for several seconds. So if you never get your hands off the sticks, you got to do it the next flight. And that's just something you have to look forward to. It's not really a big deal. It's not a big issue. But what happens is, until you fly along with no hands on the sticks, it can't differentiate between fine-tune adjustments like flying adjustments and trim. So that's why you don't want to fly an AS3X plane with a massive trim. You go in there and make a mechanical trim to correct that, and then you're golden. So anyway, hopefully you learned a little something on this video. The NX8's been working great. Very, very happy with that thing. Everything goes really nice when you got forward programming. But that being said, we also set up a panic button and we didn't even show it. Dang it. Okay, so anyway, we will pause, get another battery, and show you panic once. Okay, so we got a new battery in there, guys. Check out where it is. So it's most of the way back this time. That's real similar to where we were flying after our first adjustment last time. Okay, so without further ado, what we need to show you is one last feature that we forgot to talk about in air, and that is the panic feature. Okay, so as you know, panic recovery is a feature that comes on safe equipped receivers, but we never use it because honestly, we don't really use safe anymore, but we want to teach you guys how to set it up. So we always go through the process. Okay, so we're just gonna get up to altitude and then we'll get into a flat and level flight and then we can do some crazy stuff. Okay, first things first, panic. Okay, as I let go, it goes straight, right? Very, very simple. Okay, going up, panic. I press and then let go and it just keeps flying straight. That's because AS3X is also working now. We're not in safe, look. AS3X, panic. Okay, nothing. See, it's kind of veering down now. That's an AS3X, panic with low throttle. Gives it a chance. There is a delay in when it stops the panic feature. So let's say we're really, really upset here. Panic. Okay, and I'm full up elevator. You see that? See how it janked out of it? That's because I was giving it input. This is why I don't like panic, okay? Panic. There you go. See how it wakes up, guys? You need to be very careful if you use panic. It's gonna get you flying again, but what if there was a building right there? Now, first of all, most would argue, well, don't be flying next to a building, Brian. Yeah, I know. See? That works pretty awesome, actually. So now, let's say what it looks like in safe. So let's say you're in safe. First of all, why would you be using panic if you're in safe, right? So we're limited already on our bank angles. Watch what happens, panic. It limits a little bit more for a second. Then it lets you have free reign after about 2 to 3 seconds, okay? So panic, that's full up elevator still. You see how it reduced the amount and then it picked back up? Now watch this. I'm gonna go nose down, panic, nothing. See, it'll still let you push down. Now the other thought is, okay, I'm gonna come out of safe here. So we're in AS3X mode. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Okay, so suppose, there you go, there it let go. You can really tell when I let go. Okay, so watch this, guys. Full up elevator. See how long it is? It's a long time, folks. So when you're flying, that feels like hours. Of course, it's not hours, it's seconds. But when you're up there in the air and you're making maneuvers that have lasting impact that might be 1 millisecond different, I don't really want the ambiguity of when it's gonna release. But I'm more experienced than some people and less experienced than a lot more. See, there it is. You see what's going on, guys? In a tighter environment, you could find yourself in trouble. So anyway, let's show you a landing with just panic, okay? So we're gonna go under the power lines. We're in AS3X now, so what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna bring it in. Panic. That was hilarious. Okay, so the panic kept me going straight. The funny thing about panic is that once your nose wheel touches down, it still is gonna try to correct and keep you going straight, okay? So let's panic for takeoff. You guys see what just happened there? I panicked for takeoff. Let's go check the damage. So if you do panic, you just need to be aware there's gonna be some potential consequences. Now, did we lose the plane over it? No, but we did get it dirty. Okay, let's talk about hand launches. Okay, now I'm not in safe now, but you could have done that in safe. It probably would have been more intelligent. You want to know what happened?
What?
Battery shifted. Hey, grass hops, guys. That's my way of trying to shift the battery back by ramming into the ground. Guys, that thing is rock solid. That nose gear took it like a champ.
It did.
And look where the battery is. Shifted forward just like I expected. Okay, now you could also resolve that by having some extra Velcro, or possibly pack, you know, take your battery leads and tuck them down there.
Yeah.
I kind of put the battery in the other way. Okay, let's do a safe launch. And then I'm gonna show you just one other terrible method for launching a plane. Okay, safe is on. This thing is capable flyer, so full up elevator now. I don't really think that launch method is appropriate for this plane, but it definitely worked. Okay, so we're gonna do some takeoff flaps. Okay, full landing flaps going in there. Oh, looky, looky, looky who we have here. Let's go give him a show. This is the guy who sold us the property.
I don't think it is.
Oh, it isn't?
No.
Well, whatever. I guess you got a show anyway. I assume that was David.
I don't think so.
I see him a lot.
Yeah.
He always slows down to see the planes. That's how you know you're where you need to be, is when your neighbors stop to watch.
Yep.
And they don't get the phones out and call the cops. Man, that thing is so beautiful. Guys, I'm really loving this plane. I like it quite a bit better than the 850. I thought I'd prefer the 850 actually because of the size.
Really?
Yep. But I just think this thing is so Johnny on the spot. Makes me wish I would have put flaps in it now. Flap rounds are okay. They kind of get you by. They give you a little something to do. See, that's part of my thing with flaps, guys. I feel like with flaps, you've got, you know, behavior with and without flaps. And I just feel like flaps give you like 3 different planes. Well, not 3, more like 2. Because takeoff flaps aren't that big of a difference. But you get to experience the plane in 3 different attitudes. And I'm not talking about where the nose points. I'm talking about, hey, I want this plane to be peppy and exciting and move around and actually cover a lot of ground. But then with flaps, you can sit there and fly it at 1/3 the speed or 1/2 the speed comfortably. Here, let's go in the back because we can. Look at that, guys. That is so cool. Oh, yes. Back through the opening. You can watch the shadow. Oh, you didn't see it that time, I bet. There's a shadow. And we got wind at our nose big time. There he is.
That's David.
That's David. Now you guys can see why I was confused.
Actually, they could, because I was looking at the plane.
It's the same looking black F
Yep.
something 50.
Like a million black pickup trucks that drive down our road.
Well, the first guy had a high vis shirt
Yeah.
on. So guys, while we're talking about beginners and flying airplanes that are designed for beginners, this plane would probably be a beginner plane all the way up to intermediate. And if you're an experienced pilot and you don't have a Cessna 150 or whatever configuration this would be, I would highly recommend this plane. It's very fun. If you're in the right size class with what you're looking at, I mean, you really can't go wrong with the exception of the nose gear being a bit ugly. The good thing about an ugly nose gear is it'll survive. You saw we did some pretty rough landings there. Full speed into the grass. Like if that doesn't break the nose gear, you're gonna basically be looking at breaking the foam at that point. Okay, not full up elevator, but we're gonna try to do it with no flaps. Nice and slow. And then just soften it up. You see what happens? When you get to moving, it just wiggles. It goes like
Mm-hmm.
But you can also get it off the ground just fine. And then you don't have to think about the nose gear. We're with the wind there, folks. That's why it was so wonky looking. Let's try that again. Hey, let's go against the wind. Hey, ooh, should we land on the sidewalk? Let's do it. You want to go out like 10 feet? Thank you. Okay, we're at our 10-minute timer. I want to see if I can land on the sidewalk here. Just to wrap it up, guys. Oh, I hit the gutter, the one thing I couldn't hit. All right, let's see if we broke the plane. So for those of you that like to screw around like I do, you're gonna probably run into a gutter or two. And as you can see, oh, that was with landing flaps too, jeez. Well, see, now I feel like such a loser pilot. I gotta do that.
I know, but we should have put the gutter up.
Oh. I might be out of battery. I can't be cheating and putting gutters up.
Oh. That's cheating.
What do you think this is? No, my battery wasn't dead.
Do you want me to go back out then?
Yeah.
So you can hit the gutter again?
Yes, I want to hit the gutter again. All right, here we go. I got better visibility from here. Okay. I got to wait to put my flaps on, hon.
Okay.
I lost too much roll authority. Okay, take off flaps this time. Okay, whatever, good enough. Grass hops, as you can see. So in closing, folks, this plane is super fun. It's really strong. The nose gear is butt ugly, but holds up great to the environment that I put it in, which is hellacious. And 1300 milliamp 3S battery holds the cost down, and you'll be able to fly for a long time. That was about a 12-minute flight. I feel like we're getting a little bit of sag on the packs. We're probably about where we need to be done. Overall, FMS, great plane, super fun, pretty plane. Landing gear are solid. The mains we didn't even talk about. You know, many times on planes like this, by this point, we've already broken them. So I would say 2 flights in, good job. Why didn't you put flaps? Why aren't there LEDs? That's my only thoughts. The nose gear, totally forgivable because I'll take an ugly nose gear that survives on a beginner plane. Yeah. LEDs, I can live without. Flaps, so I just put my flaperons in there. But that being said, I love the plane, very fun. Don't let the flaps stop you because really, for a couple bucks, you could be into flaps. If you got a crash plane in the back, just pull servos out that are working, cut those things, put them in. You're gonna be done in 20 minutes. I mean, it'll literally take you 20 minutes to put flaps on that thing. And yes, I know that you guys hear me say that a lot. And yes, I realize you don't see me doing it as much as I used to. That's just because we have so many planes, it's hard to keep up. If I put flaps on everything that didn't have flaps, I'd be putting flaps on probably like 20 planes today. I don't have enough time to do them all. Yeah. I want to, but I got to show this thing in its stock configuration. Otherwise, people are going to think I'm trying to pull a fast one. So, and we already took out the Y cable.
You already put flaperons on it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, yeah, I took out the Y cable. So if I take something away from a stock configuration to make it better, then that's allowed. This is in the plug and fly, by the way. Okay. It's not a ready to fly, as you can tell from the NX8 and the smart battery in there. So do you need the smart battery? No, you could use any battery. It's got an XT60. And if you have adapters to go to other types of batteries, you could do that with Dean's or whatever. Or you could just cut off the end and put what you want on there. I used to do that all the time, but I love the fact that IC3s will go into an XT60 and an IC5 will go into an XT90. But an IC2 will not go into an XT30, which is super annoying. That's just because that pesky smart pin gets a little bit too thick. So, and they're really fun to build, by the way. I just did one the other day. All right, guys, if you see the Ranger over there flipped over, looking all lame and sad that I haven't flipped it back over yet, you can think I should adopt one from FMS. Check the link in the video description below. You can adopt your very own for whatever it costs, and then you'll help to support our channel financially. We also have Patreon and PayPal. Guys, if you haven't already, give us a like on these videos. They're super long. The algorithm hates us for it. They're like, hey, people watch this much of your video that's this long. I gotta get it in picture. They watch this much of this, and that's normal because we wanna put all the setup, all the tedious, horrible setup of every plane in this video so that you can follow along. And you can also follow along when we don't get it right the first time, and then you'll know what we did to change it. We try to put that in the flight so that you know what's going on. Because to be perfectly frank, there's gonna be 10 people that ask me in the next 2 years, hey, what was your flap setting on that thing? I don't know, I literally can't remember. It's so many planes. So you gotta watch in the video, you'll find it. It's like Easter eggs. So without further ado, please stay tuned. We're gonna do the unbox, build, and radio setup next. And if you have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. We got everything covered in this video. The only difference is we did change our flap correction, which I was thinking it was probably going to be that way. So we ended up going to -30, -80, 12, and 18. Okay, so hopefully that answers your questions because that's kind of the one that we deviated from the original setup. Otherwise, we were running our expo in the middle. We were running our gains right in the center for AS3X, and safe was rock solid. So, all right, guys, stay tuned. Thanks for watching. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look what we've got here. It's a big, long box that says FMS. You've already seen it fly. Who are we kidding? We hope you enjoyed the flight. Hopefully it was amazing. I'm sure it was because we've had pretty good luck with just about every FMS plane we've done. Oh yeah, it's the Ranger. So we have the 1220 millimeter Ranger here. And as you can see on the dining room table, where most people keep their airplanes, we have the 850 millimeter, which we did in ready to fly, but we also have it listed in the plug-in flies because evidently the ready to flies were immediately out of stock after our video went public. That's typical. Yep. We plan it that way. Let's get this thing out. All right, so this thing has a striking livery. 1220 millimeters is a good size. I don't understand what this is. I think it's a spring. I believe this one comes with, this one's a plug and fly, right? Is it a plug and fly? I gotta verify that now.
I think so. I think it said it on the
It says float included, plug and play. Yep.
Yep, there you go.
There's also a ready to fly. So if it's a ready to fly, then it's got the Reflex V2, okay? So the Reflex is like a stabilizer that is used by FMS. It's made by FMS. So let's just open this thing up. Let's see how it goes.
That's my 2 favorite words on an airplane.
What?
Simple assembly.
I'll believe it when I see it.
We've had pretty good luck with FMS for assembly though.
My daughter was quite intrigued by the checkerboard on the bottom of another plane, so she'll be excited to see the checkerboard on this one.
She likes that feature.
Okay, so this has 9-gram digital servos. Are they Metal Gear? They didn't say Metal Gear, so I doubt they are. This does come with floats. They say optional floats, so I'm assuming that you can order it with or without. But in my case, the link that I show should be for plug and play. And I don't know if I'm gonna do it with or without floats. But either way, just check on that. We're gonna be using the NX8 and we're gonna pair it up with an AR631, which is gonna give us AS3X and safe, but not the full suite of telemetry because we don't have an avian ESC in here. If we had an avian ESC, we could do thrust reverse and we could use the 631 and get full telemetry on the pack voltage, which would be pretty cool. But in this case, we'll use the 631 because I'm comfortable with this. We'll just run off of timers. I'm not sure what battery size this uses. I'm assuming it's probably gonna be a 2200 3S or 4S, but we'll find that out here shortly. And if you do want the telemetry, you can do a 637T and then you'll get all that stuff and more. We do link to both. So if you want that, but you do have to do that little 1S wire that goes down to your balance lead. Okay, so this does not come with fixed flap. It comes with optional flaps, meaning you got to cut them in and install them yourself. In fact, it's not really optional at all. They aren't there. You can put them in yourself is the key. Okay, so we've got, this looks a lot like what it looked like on the 850. So we'll just untape this. My personal predisposition is that planes should have flaps. So many, many, many times I've added flaps. I'm not adding flaps on this plane. Do you want to know why?
Why? Because
I have a million planes that are in this exact configuration, which is very interesting. And I want to see how it goes stock.
Yeah.
If it's good, which I am I'm gambling that it's going to be just fine. But all it would take to make this thing have flaps is an X-Acto knife cutting here and here, a couple extra wires coming in here, a Y cable, maybe 2 9-gram servos. You could do it with one if you really wanted to work hard, but it would be super easy. This wing, look at that.
Ooh, I like the yellow.
I like the opaque. Let's see how stiff it is. It's got a little bit of give to it. I don't know if it's just because it's braced in the middle. It feels like it's pretty strong. It's not insane strength, but it feels like it'll give a little bit. There's definitely a fiberglass spar in here. You can see it right there. Okay, so that's always good. Got good latching system here. Keyhole shape here. And then plastic where it keys into the front of the fuse. Looks like you have a quick lock on there. That's one thing to keep in mind. If you do add flaps, you'll want to make sure that you respect all the quick detach. And yes, it's got that beautiful finish on the wingtip. Love that. That's super cool. Ooh, don't forget to check down there, guys. They did that on the last one. Jeez, there's a lot of parts in there. I know camera crew was really excited that it said simple.
Assembly. See?
Don't forget to check in this cavity here, guys, right here. This is where I found that. Definitely check there, okay? And that's disappointing. Folded manual. All right, I'll put up with it, no big deal. So 1220 millimeters, it says. Okay, so let's look at the floats for a minute. Okay, we have a rudder servo installed in the float, which is pretty sweet. There's no spring return or anything though, so you want to be careful about that. Interestingly, there is a screw-in point here. I'm not sure if that's maybe where the set screw goes, so you can take this out if you want to put it on, treat these like skis. So looks like otherwise pretty standard configuration for floats. Nice beefy base on there. So where you're gonna get that hard touchdown, it's gonna help you keep that thing in one piece. Now we are gonna take these out, but we're not gonna be flying on floats. We're gonna be using the landing gear. Of course, they're optional. You don't have to use the floats, but floats are super fun in snow if you've never done it. So definitely something to try. Okay, so we have aluminum landing gear. Looks like they spring back pretty good. Kind of a hard foam tire. Not anything overly impressive there. But it does look like they've got a nut for a spacer. Pretty simple. It's just a screw with a nut and a lock nut. So it's got a nylock on the inside there. Looks pretty decent. 3 screw points to keep that solid. Looks like the assembly for the floats is pretty robust. I take these things, I put it all together in a plastic bag, and then I put them together with stretch film. And then I write on it what plane it belongs to, because we have a lot of float sets. And we don't have a pond right now to fly from. We used to live in a neighborhood where we had 3 ponds, so it was super nice. And we could fly off water super easy. In fact, we had videos where we flew from pond to pond. That was really fun. And the geese attacked me. That was with the turbo timber, or excuse me, with the regular timber, 1.5. Okay, really nice design on the horizontal stabilizer and elevator. Looks like an integral control horn. That would suck to break. Don't break that, because there's not really a good way to replace it. Good support here. Let's check for reinforcements. Really like this yellow. It's really pretty.
Definitely.
No reinforcement. Okay, that's surprising. Feels stout. Pinch hinge here though. That's underwhelming. See? Just a pinch hinge. It might be reinforced with glue. Kind of hard to tell. Normally you can see if it's reinforced with glue because it'll come up the edges. Nothing special there. I'm sure it'll be fine on this. It should be a pretty decent performance plane. It's not going to be like, you know, just go in circles and look pretty. It's going to do all the tricks and stuff too. Oh, I hate it when I break those things. My spinner is missing. Oh, it snaps on. Okay.
Oh.
So I don't know if that was supposed to be off of there, but for now we'll just lay that there. Looks like it's just off of there. It's not broken or anything. And we got some foam to protect the foam. They took a play out of Horizon's handbook there. Look at that, fancy dance. I really, really like the yellow. That's pretty.
Definitely.
I wish the whole thing was yellow. That is very strange looking. Oh my goodness.
Wow.
That's why they did
Like,
that.
actually.
So, okay, FMS is very responsive to their customers' concerns. And on our little 850, just to give you a size comparison, look at this, guys. The 850, it's about, I would say about 66% the scale of this. One of the things we had problems with was the nose gear breaking. Just the plastic, we were able to glue it back in. It took like 2 minutes, it was no big deal. But a lot of people have had problems with that. So one thing that we really appreciate about FMS is that when they hear about issues like that, they'll make accommodations. That is a spring. The entire thing is a spring. Now, I must say, that has got to be the ugliest nose gear I've ever seen in my life. But if it does the trick, I can tolerate it. And by the way, that's not true for just this model. Almost every Cessna 150, 172, I've just heard a lot of them have trouble with the nose gear. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just a tricycle configuration, but I think that that thing is ultra easy to land. And the times that I broke the nose gear, I just basically went off the end of the runway. So it wasn't like I crashed it, although I did crash it a couple of times. So the prop looks pretty nice. It's very simplistic. Doesn't even say what size it is. You see? I bet it's gonna be loud.
Think so?
Yeah, it's gonna make a lot of noise. Okay, so then we'll pop this lid. I like how that comes off because it's on the top. Top load hatch, good call. Okay. Like this is a decal. I thought it was paint. This is paint, this is a decal, this is paint, paint, paint. That's a decal. Really nice though. They've got like a matte finish on them.
Yeah.
So you can't even tell where the decal ends and the finish begins. Good ground clearance. Got about 2.5 inches there. Boy, look at that. That's beefy for the to receive where the landing gear going. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it looks like we got 9 gram. So this is FMS 9GDP. So GDP, 9 gram digital plastic.
Okay.
That's what I'm assuming. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's all the main components. We just have another float here. And then I want to show you one thing that kind of turned out weird in this box. Look at this, guys. You see that wear through point? Can you see it? What the heck happened there?
That is weird.
That is so strange. Look, is there damage on the plane? Let's check. The plane sat like this. No, I don't think so. Oh wait, was it like this? It was like this.
Like that.
So it would have been right there.
Yeah.
No, it didn't make it through.
Weird.
Okay, so whatever, no harm, no foul.
And there wasn't damage on the box.
Yeah, I know, that's what's so strange about it. It must have got poked out in the production facility.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's everything. So we have one nut sack and bolt sack. We've got the main wing. We've got the horizontal stabilizer. Maybe it's not so bad.
No.
We looked at that bolt pack and we thought, geez, that's a lot of parts.
A lot, but the piece count is pretty, well, and there's probably pieces in there that go to the floats.
Oh, yes,
too.
that's true. And that's why you have some redundancy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing too to keep in mind. If you get a float plane and you don't plan on using it on floats right away, just hang on to all those pieces because sometimes they're a little bit hard to come by.
Yeah.
Now, for us, we're fortunate because we have so many different float sets sitting around that we could probably pull the wrong one and we wouldn't even know any better. So, all right, guys, we're gonna clean up real quick and get this thing on a plane stand and come back. So we're going to build this thing. I wanna just check that this prop is tight because it feels like it is. Yeah, it's tight. We had the nose cone spinner. The spinner was popped off. This has a clip-on style spinner, which I am not fond of at all, not even a little bit, because I have a strong suspicion we're going to have problems with that. See how it's already popped off? That's because sometimes these props will push into an incorrect position, and I don't know, maybe I just did that. But it's like really hard to manipulate the position because where do you hold on? Like there's nowhere to hold. See how it's moving it? See how I just moved it? Mm-hmm. Let's see if that does it. I don't know if you guys could tell what I did there. I want you to be able to follow along. Okay. So you see how there's like a weird gap? That weird gap is not acceptable. Okay. There we go. See how I just grabbed it here and then pulled it down? Now the spinner fits and it stays. For now.
Right.
I like having the security of a screw. All right, so then, and that was the only thing that was kind of weird in our box, but.
Yeah.
Landing gear first is what they're suggesting.
Yep.
Okay, so this is keyed, so it's not really a question which way it goes. There's actually 3 holes, but only 2 of them are used. Okay, so we're gonna do, what's the length on those ones? Oh, full disclosure, we put our grub screws in a bag. Those ones are gonna go with the floats.
Yep.
And there's actually a couple other clips too that we're gonna rule out.
Are floats. That goes on.
Oh, and then the screws go.
And then the screws.
That's because they have these holes that are
Yep.
countersunk.
So then we have
Okay.
short screws.
That's a really nice fit.
And long screws.
See how nice that is?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have short and long, both 2 millimeters.
Yes. So you need 2 of each.
2 long at the front?
Nope. Long in the back.
Long in the back, okay. All right, so we're just gonna tighten this in here. So far, this thing feels really solid. It looks really nice, except for the nose gear.
I was gonna say, I was like looking at it in the camera.
But to be honest, if it's a trainer, you know, it's gotta be function over form. You kind of have to do that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know. It's just maybe not the prettiest
Tell us how
way.
you really feel.
I really love it, secretly. I want all nose gear to look like that. Well, I've broken my fair share of nose gear.
Yeah, that's true.
But usually because I'm screwing around and like hit a foam pole. Okay, so we have the landing gear on. That was pretty easy. Horizontal stabilizer.
Yep.
And elevator.
Yes.
Okay, so we're just gonna slide that in there, plop it down. Okay.
2 long screws.
All right, here we go. Let's get that in there. Jeez, keeps going. It's so weird. We've built so many planes since our last Dynam, and we've had not even a single one fail to go through.
But every time,
we build a
Dynam, a screw, it makes me nervous.
I know, it's so weird.
Have like cold sweats or something.
Well, okay, so that looks good. That rudder looks really darn close. You see where that rudder is, guys? See the clearance? That's, I'm assuming it just rocks right on that pivot point there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's tight. Toy, like a toy gun.
Do you want to put the control horn on? Or
Yeah.
the linkage?
I think we should. Oh, and by the way, it comes with 2 Y cables. One's for the rudder and one's for the, or maybe it just says rudder because I don't know why we would need one for the rudder because there's only 1 servo.
Will that go with the floats?
Oh, yes. That's right. So this would be used if you were doing floats.
Sweet. We can get rid of that one too.
Okay. You're just excited about the piece count getting smaller. Okay, so what hole positions do we do for that?
Outermost hole on the control horn.
On the control horn, and then what about on the actual surface?
It does not.
It does not say. Okay. Ow. Stabbing myself. Okay, so we're just gonna get this thing in here, just like this. Come on, you can do it. There it is. Oh yeah, buddy. Then, as you can see, we've got this kind of goofy angle to it. That's not so good. See that? Look at that. Jeez. That's actually because this thing has got a little bit of a bend to it. So I'm going to just take and just do this. Yeah, I know. It doesn't look very good, does it?
No.
But trust me, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Okay?
I trust you.
Goodness gracious. Oh, sometimes those things, those clevises are so hard to get started. Okay, so we're just going to put this out here. It was all the way screwed in there. This, we don't know exactly what position it's going to go in, so we're not going to snap it, but we'll just slide it in loose.
Okay.
Okay, and we'll intentionally pull this back so it kind of flops around and reminds me to get that straight later, because we don't know if that servo is centered, and I don't want to hook up a servo tester just to center it. See, I didn't actually get purchase on the other side. I just kind of fed it through, you see?
Yep.
So it still moves the elevator. That's a really good way to crash a plane, by the way, is to do that halfway. The best thing to do would be do nothing, but we've done this so many times that we don't ever make mistakes. Just kidding. We make tons of them. I just wanted to see if I could fool somebody. All right, so everything else is basically just wing and transmitter, right?
Mm-hmm. Main wing installation.
So those must all be for the floats then, huh? Because what do we need for the wings? We just need these two things.
Yep.
Right here. Okay, so let's see how this works before we get too excited about receiver stuff. Okay. So that's going to drop into position there. That's a pretty sweet look.
Yeah.
It looks good. I like it. It's going to be good.
What are the things? The wing struts have the little same slide-in mechanism, so there's no hardware on those either.
Yeah, so you can do this toolless. You can take your wing off toollessly. However, it's a 1.2. It's not like a humongous plane. So if you've got a car, you might need to take this apart, but even that, you know, it's not that. But you can undo the wing strut and make quite a bit of room just by putting the wing strut out. See how that fits?
Yeah.
So this is supposed to run on a 1300 3S. So we have a 1300 3S right here. Now you'll note that that is a smart Gen 1 smart pack here. And you'll note that this is an XT60. So just to confirm for you, they do mesh up, but they're a little bit harder to get together, okay? So that will work. And we're gonna use that along with our receiver. Now, this cavity in here, I noted one thing about it. If you wanna show the people inside there, the rudder cable,
Where is it?
it's right there.
Oh.
You see the rudder cable? See where the rudder cable is? You need to be really careful, guys, to get that so it's not in a pinch point, okay? So I don't know if you want to like come over here for a minute.
Okay.
We might have to take this off the plane stand just so you can see.
Or I'm gonna have to sit on the counter.
You could just grow like 14 inches.
I'll work on that.
Okay, great. So we've got throttle here. We'll just plop that out the side. Then this one here is one I was, elevator here. Okay. Wonder if we could just tape those up there. Wonder if that would
be kind of handy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna tape them up there. And then we're just basically gonna get our receiver ready.
Yeah.
And when I say get the receiver ready, we have to figure out all the setup first. Okay, so we're just gonna tape this so it stays put. Don't put the tape over here because you'll pull your finish off. Okay, and this is the rudder. So this is really a pretty simple plane. It's a 4-channel plane. You got throttle, elevator, rudder, aileron, okay? And if you went for 5 channels, then you would be able to do flaps. But you see this, they've used that 4-banger there, like this. And probably what I'm gonna do is, I don't know if I'm gonna cut off the opposite sides here just so I have an easier way of going up to where my receiver sits. Maybe it'd be better to just drop under here. That's probably what I'll have to do. I'm always concerned about these cables getting caught up, but evidently I'm the only one because all these manufacturers keep doing it. What do you think, camera crew?
They don't have to fix it when it crashes.
Oh, yes, they do. Okay.
So you're gonna go under that control rod
I guess.
for now.
For now, I just don't have a ton of length. It doesn't feel like.
Where do you think the receiver's gonna go?
That's the good question, camera crew. I don't know. Maybe on the side this time. I almost never do on the side. You could do it on the wing. Might actually make better sense to just do it on the wing. Because I can mount it upside down, like right here. And then I've got 3 cables to plug in. So you just plug in the 3 cables, slide the wing in, and you're done. I don't know. We don't ever do that, but we could totally do it. The AR631 and the AR637 TA have been really good receivers. We haven't had any problems with them. Obviously, they're kind of expensive, but you know they do the job. And they give you the AS3X safe, and then a lot of telemetry, even though you don't get the one that you want, which is pack voltage, which I've been talking to Horizon about, by the way, guys. Okay, so we're just going to pull this out. We think that there's a number of things that the RC community demands that have been neglected for a long time. Not in every model, but like we shouldn't even have to ask for flaps and LEDs. It just happen. Every plane, every size, flaps and LEDs. See this? That's how small this thing is. Very nice. It's got a lot of stuff going on. There's a push button here, and then you can also have a bind plug. So just because the nature of where I'm thinking about doing this, I may actually tape it on there and just plop the thing in quick and make sure I'm not going to run into it on the way in. Because this position will be a little bit weird.
Yeah.
What are you concerned about?
Are you going to hit this?
No.
How much space does that take up?
Well, you can put it this way too. I could also mount it. I can mount it in here. Maybe that's better.
What's the little spot right in front of the oh, you're under that control horn, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd really rather not have that. See, because I don't know if these wires are going to be long enough then. They are pretty long. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna throw caution to the wind. We're gonna put it on the wing. Let's tape it on there and just test real quick. This is our test. This is a high-tech test, okay?
We thought this out for a long time.
Yeah.
Spent all afternoon planning.
Yeah, right. That's what we did exactly. We didn't organize our drawers.
There's only one drawer.
There's nothing good about getting old. Okay, so just plop this in here. The antenna, yeah, well, I don't know that the antenna, I'd really rather not rip the antenna off when it's not even built yet. Let's just drop it in there. Kind of push it in with the fingernail. That didn't work very good. I'll tape it down just to keep it protected. And this is not permanent, folks. This is just a test. That's why I'm taping everything in a semi-permanent fashion. Okay, so let's say we did that, okay? Drop these plugs down. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Feels like I'm running into a little something there. I think it's just my connectors, actually. Yep, it's just the connectors.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll just plop those down a little bit deeper. Oh yeah, we should be fine. I think we're gonna be good there. Yeah, that'll work. That should be no problem. I think we're gonna do that.
And that's an okay mounting direction.
Yes.
For that receiver.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's fine.
I'm glad I thought of that.
It doesn't care. You can't go sideways. That was one of the directions I showed earlier. You're not supposed to go sideways.
Oh.
Because it needs to face forward or backward.
Okay.
Yeah. That's all it cares about. So in this case, really the next step is we got to secure that down, and then we basically, I think we're going to set up flaperons because, you know, we've already got ailerons, so we might as well set them up. It's not going to take us any extra time to do that. And then let's go ahead and tape down the antenna because that's just to kind of get that in position. That's not really helping today.
It's not.
That's going to save us a Y cable, so camera crew, you can celebrate now. Exactly. So we'll just do it the easy way.
How are you attaching the receiver?
By the antenna. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. Unless we can get away with it.
Somebody paused right after you said with the antenna, and then they taped theirs down, and then they went back.
Brian, you got me again, you silly goose. So the other thing I was thinking about is, obviously we're gonna stick this down with some double-sided tape or something of that nature. A lot of times we use hot glue, which I know sounds a little bit aggressive, but honestly, that should be fine. I think we'll just do a double-sided tape. It should be fine.
Okay.
Should be no problem. Should be huge. The only thing I'm thinking about is how hard is it going to be to get to the button to bind? But really, we can bind it open and then close it.
Yeah.
Because we're doing the forward programming after the fact.
Right.
Okay, so the next step we're going to do is we'll get some double-sided tape and we'll come right back. Okay, so we got some double-sided tape. This is pretty impressive stuff right here.
Mm-hmm. The highlight of my day.
You know where that came from?
Stuff we just took downstairs.
Exactly. It's been sitting in that drawer for 10 years. We've only lived here 2 years, but it was in the drawer before we moved. This is what happens when you get old and you go on vacation. You clean your drawers.
Your wife makes you reorganize your batteries.
Yes. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
So old.
No, it's not that old. It's just that this backside's always really hard to get off of there. I've always had trouble with one side of these ones. This is actually super good double-sided tape.
Give me a pause that'll heal instantly.
See, that was super easy.
I don't know how long it's been.
3.5 hours later. No, what happened was I used an X-Acto knife to start it. That actually works really good. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. So there you have it. So now it's mounted. Okay, so we've got 2 of these are going to be coming from the wings. They will be separate channels if we're doing flaperons. So we'll do that shortly. But in the meantime, we're going to roll this over and just get ourselves ready. In fact, we do need to basically do the radio setup now. Yeah. So we will have a pretty easy time with this because we don't have the receiver attached to the power supply. Okay, so the first step on a plane like this is we're going to turn on the transmitter, and we are on a acceptable item here, camera crew. So we're going to click, go into the function list, scroll all the way down, go to system setup, disconnect RF, go to model select. This is where you add new model. Okay, ready? And it's going to be an airplane, not a heli. Just happens to be that we did an heli last time, so it's called an acro. So we'll create an acro. We're probably going to have an extension cord from the ESC.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that we can work on it without having a lot of work. I mean, I've got a couple up here.
Oh, okay.
So then we can go to model name, and this is where we type in the name. It's number 57, :space. Then we click and scroll over. This is called the Ranger 1220 millimeter. So we'll come right back. All right, so we've got the name typed in there. I always put the size just in case you get another one that's a different size. Beeps like that, it's normal. Aircraft type, this is where you would scroll in what type of configuration you want, like if you have dual ailerons or if you want to do flaperons. We're going to be doing flaperons, the tail's normal. I'm going to just scroll down to this image, and I want to select one that's maybe a little bit closer match. It's general aviation, single engine. I'd say that's pretty close. And then we'll be doing some assignments a little bit later. Do we need a flight mode? Let's do one flight mode. Okay, so let's set up switch one, meaning you're picking which one you want to be a flight mode selector. Okay, and there's a bunch of flight modes. You can do like 9, I think, which is crazy. Okay, so see how it says 1 and 2 when I change that? So that'll be like our safe or not, okay? Then this will be used for flaps on switch B. So that's switch A, and that's switch B. And then later, you know, we've got our throttle cut and all that good stuff, so we'll do that next. Okay, so position 1, position 2, we're not gonna mess with it. We're just gonna leave them for now. And we'll go out to the regular menu. And they suggested what flight time?
Like 10 to 15 minutes.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's
On
go
1300?
to, yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah.
So timer, countdown, 1 time is active. That means when we go over 25%, that's the threshold. It'll start counting down from 5. You're saying 10 to 15? Mm-hmm. Why don't we just say 12 and a half? And we'll do next. And then we can test it at the first flight. 1 minute we don't want anything, 20 seconds we don't want anything. 10 to 1 we want voice for a countdown, and then expiration is going to be tone and vibrate. And then a tone every minute thereafter. Okay, so we'll walk out of there. And then we want to set up throttle cut. That's important for safety. It's going to be on this switch H. Toward my belly, I want it to be cut down to nothing. You can see it's working because the throttle stick's moving and it's not. When I turn that off, then it does work. Okay, so I turn it on and it protects us. All right, and then we've got a flap system. I don't know what direction we want it, but I am going to set it to switch B. I am going to set the speed to, let's just do 2 seconds, which is a pretty safe bet. Elevator correction sometimes is a little bit weird when you do flaperons. So let's just do 10 and 20. We don't even know what direction it's going to go, so we don't care yet. But the big thing is, because we don't know what direction the servos are going to move, by default, we are going to play it safe and maybe do like 50, 0, and then minus 50, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It could be the other way around. We really don't know what direction yet. It doesn't matter. But you can see that the right aileron and left aileron are moving. See that? And then you can see that auxiliary 2 is also tied to this switch. So that's not necessarily helpful to us in any way.
Flight mode 2, flight mode 1.
Okay, so that's going to be where we turn on safe. Okay, so we see all that working. And then if we wanted to do a mix, we could do like an aileron to rudder mix. You could turn that to on, and then you could set that to like 25%. Now, also, that can be set up within safe, which is in forward programming. Timer's cleared, see how it starts. So now one other thing that we're gonna do while we're thinking about it is we're gonna go down to flight mode. Oh wait, it's audio events, my apologies. Switch changes, flight modes, there it is. You can also do it as a switch change, but I want to make the audio event tied to the flight mode change, not the switch, in case we reassign this switch to something else. Okay, so you see how it says flight mode 1.
Flight mode 1.
So I want flight mode 1 to be AS3X. So I'm going to type in AS3X here, and we'll come right back. And if you guys were wondering, I use the legacy keyboard. My firmware is up to date, but I turned it back to the old legacy keyboard because I'm much more familiar with it and comfortable with it. Then, when it's in AS3X,
Flight mode 2.
okay, so we'll change this one to say safe, and we'll come right back. Okay, so even though I'm using the legacy keyboard, I wanted to show you something. So as you're typing, you see how we're at the end of the letter? You can hit back, and it'll clear. Or not back, cancel, cancel. And then that takes care of it. Whoops.
Flight mode 1. Flight mode 2. Flight mode 1.
Now this is the annoying part. You click in here and look how far you have to scroll. You see the scroll bar? We're gonna go all the way to the bottom. And so we're in AS3X mode now. And that assignment has not been made, so don't get confused and forget to do that, but stability, agility. We're getting close, self-level. Okay, safe mode, and then AS3X mode. Like, why is that not at the top?
Flight mode 2. AS3X mode.
And she's so slow. Oh my goodness.
2.
Drives me nuts. Like, can't you just say safe? Is there another one that says safe instead of AS3X mode?
Not that I've seen.
Well, it's probably all the way at the bottom. Oh, wait. Oh, GPS mode. There's safe mode.
AS3X mode. Safe mode. AS3X mode. Safe mode.
Okay, cool. Now, don't let that audio event confuse you. It doesn't actually set anything. It's just verbalizing what you're going to be setting later. Okay, so we'll walk back out to the regular mode. We'll clear the timer, throttle cut's on, sticks down, and we can go ahead and power this off and commit all this stuff to memory and just make sure that it's all in there. This stuff is committed to memory as you make changes, but I've heard of some people having trouble with that, so just shut it off. You're gonna be turning it back on and going into a bind mode here shortly. So also this will tell you where to plug things in. So I'm just gonna grab an extension cord, a servo extension cord, and that's just gonna make it a little bit easier for us. In fact, I think it's 2 shorter cables. Or actually, you know what? Let's use the stuff that came with it. Because if you guys don't have extension cords in your kitchen, you may want to use what came with it. So I'll show you. There's another trick. It's not really a hard one to figure out, but you can just use these as an extension cord, okay? Because all we're doing is we're just trying to make it easy to have the wing off, okay? So there's that. And if you're using a receiver that doesn't have a bind button, then you could put a bind cable in and drop it down to where your battery tray is, which we're not gonna do that because I'm gonna have it bound and then I'm gonna be done with it. Okay, so throttle, we can turn this back on. I prefer the power cycle, even if it's not doing anything, just because I know that the way machines work, it's better to do that.
I'm gonna come around so I can see.
Throttle is kind of buried. See? And the only reason we're doing this is so it's easy to see. You wouldn't have to do this. Okay, so just make sure your brown is lined up with your brown, or your brown is lined up with your black, if you're using the other style. Okay. That isn't gonna work, is it? I'm gonna have just one cable, just one extension. My bad, whatever, that's good enough. Seems like, yeah, that would still buy me a little bit more length. So we'll go like this. Then we'll go into port 1, not the bind plug, okay? Not the bind port. So now that would allow us to energize the circuit and then bind, okay? We don't actually have to have everything plugged in, but maybe it makes better sense to just bind anyway. I don't know. It's just awkward when you have a wing that has all the wires going to it, no matter how you slice it. Also, you want to protect yourself from this prop. Many times it's best to just take the prop off. I don't do that. You guys can if you want to. It's probably better to do it that way. Don't listen to me. So this is plugged in. Now I'm going to grab my battery. We'll just pull that lid off because we don't need that on there right now. And we'll just drop the battery in here. This is the battery we plan to use. Okay, so all we're doing is we're worrying about binding. And normally I would worry about the level attitude here, but it really, at this point, doesn't matter because it's not spatially aware yet. We don't have AS3X or safe active. Throttle cut is on, stick is down, power is going off. Okay, I'll be able to secure and brace this plane. Okay, so it's turned off. Now, we could plug these in at least, but we're not going to. Let's just do this. So we're going to plug this in. Okay, this has not been bound yet, so it's just off as far as we're concerned. Okay. So we can press this and it starts flashing. See the flashing? Now I'm going to get myself a little bit further away. I'm going to press this button, and then I'm going to press the button on the front and then let go of this button. It says binding, bind failed. Okay, if the bind fails, don't worry, just click, scroll down to bind mode or bind and then hit bind. I'm further away this time. See how it says bind failed again? So now I'm going to go even further away. Now you're not going to hear anything but the ESC because we haven't hooked up any servos yet. So just to make sure we have the thing working, careful, I'm going to go ahead and run the throttle. My throttle cut's on and tested to work. Throttle cut's off and tested. The air's moving the right direction and we've tested it. Okay, so now at this point, since we're bound, we can go ahead and unplug the transmitter or the power to the airplane, all of it. Okay. Now we can go ahead and start plugging things in. So it should be pretty straightforward. Now remember, we won't need to get to that receiver again except for to get the wires plugged in. So we can actually take out all this stuff. And that is if we don't make a mistake.
Right. thought we never did that.
We don't. I do. See, the truth comes out. Does that really? Does that stick in there?
Stay in
Oh, that'd
there.
be sweet.
I don't think it's going to. Do
Yeah, I was gonna say that's super wishful thinking.
you want me to hold?
Yeah, actually, that's great. Okay, so just to be clear, if you guys look at this, it's got a minus, plus, and S. So minus is brown in this case, so pin 1 or port 1. Okay. Then we have rudder, and you can see this rudder is just precarious. I do not like that. I want to protect the cable from being damaged and from getting tangled up. So I think one other thing we could do is we could use the Y cable, which would buy some more length. I wonder if maybe that's the thing to do. You know, because then later when we add the floats, we can just, I'm actually going to take this wire. This is glued together. This fuse is glued together in half. And so I wonder if I can just try to get this to go in there. Right there. Nah, it's not going to go. So you see what I'm going to do? I'm going to actually rip this. I'm going to rip it. Then I'm going to very carefully, with the tip of my forceps, force that wire down in there. Okay. Not very deep, just enough to buy a little bit of security. Okay. Then it looks like we're probably going to need to have this just to reach. So I'm going to go ahead and put on the Y cable, which, again, we hadn't planned on doing it, but it's not a big deal. These dudes have good retention clips. Okay, so we're going to put the brown to the brown. Sorry, folks, it's always kind of hard to film this step because your hands are in the way no matter what you do. We've tried a number of different ways. It never seems to really do much of anything. Okay, so we can go over to monitor mode. So I can see right here it says rudder is on channel 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the 4th channel is labeled here 4. Just slide it in. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do to somewhat protect even further still our rudder servo is I am going to tape these wires to the side, the inside of the fuse, just willy-nilly, not anything special about it. We're just pushing it up against the side and taping it, okay? Very simply. We're not going to overthink it. We're just going to tape it in there and hope for the best, because that's better than what we were going to get without doing anything. Then the elevator, this one's pretty easy. That one's going to channel 3 according to the monitor. Okay, can you see that good? Mm-hmm. Of course I dropped it. Why would I not? Oh, geez. It's going to be very tight, like almost impossible. So channel 3. Okay, so that's the last one that's going to get plugged in. Okay. So now the ailerons, let's think about this logically. I'm going to need to rotate this wing and then drop it down in, okay? Because it's backward, right? You follow?
Yep.
So thinking of it this way, this is the right wing and this is the left wing. Yep. So the right aileron is right here, right? Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Agreed.
Right. So now this one's going into port number 2, which is actually the 3rd set of pins because your bind plug is your 1st set. And then this is the left aileron. So the left aileron is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the 6th channel. Now, this may not run the direction we expect, but we can still flip the direction of all these things at a later moment. Okay, so everything is plugged in except for the elevator. All right, so the elevator needs to be plugged in on port number 3. Okay, let go.
Okay.
This one's just going to be one of those where you'll have to take my word for it. Yellow toward the front of the airplane as it lies. Okay. I don't like how short that cable is. I wonder if I'm going to have to use an extension cord just to get the job done.
Can you use that other cord that came with it?
I could, but I have extension cords. So if you don't have an extension cord, folks, you can use the other Y cable. The ailerons would give you a lot more length to get inside, but I have my reasons for doing it this way, and I'm okay with them. It's maybe not the best idea. I don't need that much extra length.
Right.
So, and if you find yourself in a pinch where you don't have an extension cord, just use the Y cable. And if you'd like, if you know you're going to use this as an extension cord and you don't want that flopping around in there, you can tape and just cut this right down here real close so that you don't have any dead short. If you're still in doubt, cut one, then go out a half an inch, cut another one, go out another, 3/8 or a half an inch and cut it. And then you can tape over it and they won't have that opportunity to short themselves out. I've not run into a lot of problems with that myself, but I know some of you guys find yourself in very strange situations. I always get to hear about it. Okay, so here's this. So that makes that a lot easier.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's not that big a deal. I figured I was going to be using 2 extensions to reach my ailerons. Now, most people are probably just going to put the receiver inside the cab of the plane. Whatever. It's not a big deal. It doesn't matter either way. Okay, so now we can just pivot this. And actually, at this point, we should be able to power it up and see what's going on before we get it all seated down. So let's do that. Throttle cut's on. We've already verified that the throttle cut's working, but we want to make sure it's working, so we're going to be very careful when we do it the first couple of times. Make sure we didn't screw up. Not that the plane screwed up, but that we didn't screw up. Good. Everything's working there on the flaps. So roll left. I'm going to put it in the neutral setting. Elevator up, elevator down. That's backward. Rudder left, rudder right. That's correct. Roll left, roll right. Those are both wrong. And it looks like the flaps are wrong altogether. But that doesn't matter because the throttle's working, the throttle cut's working, so we should be good to go. So now at this point, we'll verify the throttle cut before we take our hands off the controls. Then we're just gonna jump in with 2 feet and get this thing seated on here, okay? Now I have no plans of taking my wing off, so that might impact the way that you decide to mount your wing.
True.
In our case, we pretty much keep our planes together, so it works out good for us in our application. But we know that a lot of you guys do different things. Some of you won't have a problem transporting this in your vehicle, and some of you may not transport. Okay, so there's an arrow. It says to spin that way. That sure doesn't feel right.
Is there one that's right for each?
They appear to be the same. So I think I'm just not pushing hard enough. Oh my goodness, that's very scary to do. That doesn't seem right.
No.
It's because, boy, you really got to tweak it hard.
Goodness.
But it worked.
Yeah.
No problem at all. And then these things were probably supposed to be put on first, but who cares? So I'm just going to stick that in there and then pull it back. Nice. And then stick that in there and pull it back. Whoa, buddy, slipped off the table. So guys, there you have it. The plane is together. Now we need to finish our radio setup. So we'll pause, get things cleaned up and come right back. All right, so we're gonna mark the CG.
50 to 60 millimeters
Okay.
back.
So we'll go to 50 on the calipers. And then we're just going from the leading edge of the wing, right? Mm-hmm. So 50 to 60. I like to make a dent. And I like to color it in. It's big and ugly, but easy to find. Okay. There's 50. And then we're going to go to 60. And we'll be able to test this pretty much right away because we have the battery in. My expectation is to be really easy to get this thing to balance out with the 1300 milliamp pack that we've got picked out. Okay, and I like that. I like the feel of having a little bump or dent. I used to really take my time and put tape out and then do certain things, and it just never really worked any better than this. This has always worked really good, and so we just do it this way anymore. It's worked great for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we do have the battery in there. Okay, so just checking. Okay, so in the middle, we're good. So the thing is fine. If I go to the front hole, it's pretty much right there. If I go to the back hole, it's pretty much still right there. So I think this plane is gonna be super forgiving on that. All right, so let's get this thing finished up on radio setup. So the way the radio setup works on an AR631, it's the same it works on an AR637T. So if you're taking one out of a bind and fly plane that's been crashed, then make sure you just go into forward programming and reset it. But you can actually do all the rest of your setup first. So if you'll come around from behind me, we'll take a look at this. So the first thing I like to do is I like to get myself in a position where I can see the direction of travel. So that's obviously wrong. When you pull down on the stick, that should go up, okay? So this is correct. The steerable nose gear is going the right direction, and the tail, the rudder is going the right direction. Obviously, they are the same servo, but sometimes linkages get installed on the wrong side, so you do have to check that. Okay, so then obviously our flaps are not correct yet, but the correction is correct, okay? So that's fine. So let's start with the elevator first. Servo setup, travel, scroll over to reverse, click elevator. Elevator goes up, elevator goes down. Sometimes that screws up your trimming. So let's take a look at that real quick and just see it. What we're doing is we're looking from the side, and I want to see that that's level, okay? And it is not quite level. It's going up just a hair, okay? So we want to bring that down just a hair. So that means we're going to have to bring that clevis in just a little bit. Okay, so we'll try to kind of hang that over the edge so that it's easy to show you guys what we're doing. And we'll just pop this out, and then I'll just kind of hang onto this with 3 fingers, and then I'll spin it once, and that should bring it down and in. We're going to the outside-most hole. Now let's take a look. That looks pretty stinking good. I got lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we should be able to take this and clip this on, okay, and then slide this over. Now our controls are good for the elevator. All right, so elevator up, elevator down, and we return to the very center of the throw, okay? Roll left, or excuse me, yaw left, yaw right, okay, so we're good there. And then roll left, that's wrong. That would actually be rolling right. And so let's change that. Because we have flaperons set up, we have to flip this one, and we have to flip that one. Okay, so watch. Roll left, roll right. I'm gonna put it to the neutral position. Roll left, roll right, elevator up, elevator down, roll left, yaw right. So everything is working as it pertains to that setup. Now, we also have auxiliary 2 tied to this switch with our flaps. So we just need to remember that. If it causes a problem later, we'll have to check that. Also, I noticed that our gear are splayed out a little bit. Okay, so that means that, you know, they're just kind of lifted a little bit. So I'm going to try to fix that now by just taking and bending these down just a hair, midway down. Now you may not want to do that, but I want to. Now why do I care? Because that's going to help track the plane straight, and also it's going to help because I'm going to have to adjust that nose gear, it looks like. If you look down the length of this rudder, that looks pretty stinking good, okay? We could probably do a little bit of adjustment this way, but I would like to adjust mechanically this nose gear. Look how much we're veering to the right. Okay, so that's something that we want to have done. Not 100% sure how to do that. Let's take a look and study this mechanism. There's definitely not an adjustment down here that I can see. Okay, well, wait. I just literally adjusted it. Okay, well, that's pretty awesome. Maybe the ugly spring is growing on me. Look at that. That's pretty sweet. Okay, well, evidently that's the way you adjust it. You just grab it and move it.
We'll see if it stays.
Yeah, it probably won't, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. There's probably a set screw, a grub screw somewhere that's not tight. Okay, so now that we have that done, and the reason I have the camera crew over here is because when you're behind the plane, it's a lot easier to get your coordinates about you. Okay, so now let's go into flaps. Now that we've set all the directions the correct direction. So we're going to click and scroll down to flap system. See how it's plus 50? So that is correct. It's going up. Then it's going neutral. Then it's going down. Okay? So I think what we're going to do is we never know if flaperons are going to work better as spoilerons or flaperons. Flaperons, of course, are where they drop down and then they both behave as ailerons still. Spoilerons would be where they go up and then they spoil lift as opposed to increase lift / change the shape of the wing to, you know, point the nose down. And plus all this is kind of opposite when you're on the outboard portion of the wing. So if you go up like this, you're going to spoil lift still. If you go down like this, you're going to tend to increase lift with the same airspeed, but you're also going to increase drag. And up here, you're going to increase drag, but you're really just making separation on the wing. So the airfoil, the air is going across, and then you're actually creating this void, so it separates from the wing. That's what happens when you stall, by the way. But in this case, I don't think we want to do spoilerons. I think I want to do flaperons because it's going to more closely mimic the actions of a flap. So in this case, we'll set this to 0. So click and set it to 0. And then we'll set this to, actually we'll click and go down to -50. Well, let's do -30. And then let's do -50, okay? So there's takeoff and there's landing. So I want to go on landing all the way down and see how much we've got to work with. See how it stops. That could be a mechanical thing. Are we out of throw? Yep, we're probably out of throw there. If you look at where the servo is, yeah, we're out of throw. So as a result of being out of throw, I don't want to go all the way to -100. I want to go closer to like -70. Let's do 80. 80 is good. Okay, so as that drops, then we're going to be able to roll. Now, you'll notice that we have no stabilization and we have no auto leveling. You probably didn't notice either of those things because we haven't tried to wiggle the plane. Wiggle, 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 nothing's happening, okay? So stabilization and auto leveling come as a function of AS3X and safe, okay? AS3X and safe both operate on AS3X, so safe is a function of AS3X. AS3X stands for artificial 3-axis stabilization, or artificial stabilization 3-axis, actually. I always say that wrong, in the wrong order. And then SAFE stands for sensor-aided flight envelope, and that just speaks to limiting your bank angles if you wish, having a panic mode, and then auto leveling. When you let go of the sticks, the plane will automatically right itself and bring itself to a level attitude. So that means it's going to pull up if it's pointed down, it's going to push down if it's pulled up, and then it's going to roll. If you're rolling left and you let go of the sticks, it's going to roll even. If it's rolling right, it's going to roll even. So let go of the sticks, plane goes level. That's the key. That makes flying very easy for beginners. And plus, this plane's going to tend to fly pretty good in that regard anyway, because of the high wing and the low center of gravity. It's going to tend to kind of swing low. It's going to swing like a swing that your kids swing on. But if there was dihedral, it would further exaggerate that effect. But this plane is a very good flying plane. So you're going to get a lot of aerodynamic help with the stabilization as well. So let's look at forward programming next. So forward programming, there are occasions where the plane, upon exiting forward programming, will reboot and cause the motor to kick on. Not full speed or anything like that, but it's usually like a trimming issue, you know, like a 4% difference or something like that. So just be aware of it and be careful, okay? So brace the model when you're ready to exit for the first time to see how the plane is going to behave. Okay, forward programming, connecting. Okay, so this is all done through telemetry, forward and backward. Okay, gyro settings, other settings. We want to go to gyro settings. First time setup, this is where it's going to learn the position of the receiver. Okay, make sure everything's set up first. Make sure all your course trim adjustments and things like that. Make sure all your wing types are the same. If you make a change, you can change it by going back through the first time setup. Okay. Continue. Okay, so it's on its nose. I'm going to highlight that so it's ready. And then I'm going to go ahead and set it on its nose as it's requested and continue. You'll note that I kept it positioned in the same, you know, yaw position, if you will, okay? So this is called orientation 7, continue. So I'm just going to take its word for it because I don't exactly know what direction that means. But normally it shows this button in the Spectrum logo and all that, okay? So I'll just take its word for it for now, and we will know in a few minutes if it's correct by doing some tests, which I'll walk through with you. Gain, channel, select. I'm going to put it to the knob, and I'm going to set that to auxiliary 2, okay? So gain channel, auxiliary 2. Well, actually, let's just go to auxiliary 3, which is already right knob. Okay, let's apply those changes. Please stand by. You notice it booted, and there was only one dance, and that's done. 2 dances means safe is active. So AS3X only is active. So that's it. When there's a second dance, you've got safe active. So it told you that it was the receiver was rebooting, so just click list. It'll bring you back to forward programming. At this point, you can go up, down, roll left, roll right, Takeoff flaps, landing flaps, yaw left, yaw right. So all the control surfaces have been tested, but you'll note that there is no response from AS3X. That's because you have to give throttle for that to go active. Throttle cuts off. Throttle cuts back on. And you can hear the dance. It's kind of subtle, but you can hear it. Now I'm going to turn this knob for auxiliary 3 all the way up. Actually, I'm going to hold the plane because it'll be easier for you guys to hear and see. I'm looking at the control surfaces and I can see them move. When I lift the wing, I want to see it go up. But you guys can't see, so I'm going to make it so you can see. I'll show you how. Go into forward programming, connect. Gyro settings, AS3X settings, AS3X gains, gain sensitivity, 4. Now watch this. Up, down, up, down. Now I'm going to turn my knob all the way down. That's halfway. That's all the way. That's 25%. That's halfway. That's 75%. That's all the way. Now look at the rudder. Pretty extreme, right? So toward the camera crew, toward the oven. Now elevator, up to the light, down to the table. Now aileron, up, down, down. Look, watch, feedback. You have to check both because we have flaperons. They're separate channels. Up, down, up, down. Everything is working. Steerable, don't look at your steerable nose gear. It'll confuse you. Look at the tail. Good, 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 good. Everything's working. So, stabilization's on. Stabilization's still on. Doesn't matter which side it's on because we haven't set up the flight mode yet. But I don't want 4 times. That's way too much. So let's show you how to change that back. So from this menu, you can click on the 4 times and scroll it back down to something like probably 1 times. Okay, I might actually do 2 times.
Well,
Well, let's just do 1 times. Priority, well, it just doesn't seem like we got enough. Okay, so, because watch this. Up, down, up, down, up, down. That's halfway. That seems about right.
I mean, you can always turn it like way
I can always
down.
turn, well, I can go in and change the gain later
Yeah.
too. So now, there are fractional values below 1 as well. Keep in mind, if you set an adjustable gain, you can adjust this. My key is, I want it to be in the midpoint because most planes I have been configured to be in the midpoint. So if I'm flying the Rafale today, and then I fly the Ranger tomorrow, I don't want to forget and have it way up and then need it all the way down for the Rafale.
Right.
And then all the way up for the Ranger. So just get it adjusted the first couple of flights if you can. Okay. Now priority, this is stick priority and it's automatically pre-populated. I think this value is like to 240 from 0. So read the book if you want to find out more. I always leave it in the standard stick priority. That has to do with your priority over AS3X priority. So AS3X is aware of its spatial position and it responds accordingly. Whereas you have a stick and you move it and then it's making the servo do something. Okay, so it's the fight between the computer and your brain. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll walk back out of this menu. Then we can go to the flight mode setup. Well, actually, we'll just do first time safe setup because we have to have that set up before we can toggle anyway. Okay, before setting up safe, flight mode channel.
Safe mode, AS3X mode.
So that's going to be on gear.
Safe mode, AS3X.
Remember, that's just an audio event happening right now. Now we'll continue. This is where you need to be a little bit careful. If this were to start, we already know that it's not going to start, but I'm just going to put the plane over here just to be on the safe side. If the thing starts, it's not going to cut me. Okay, flight mode 1. Select the desired flight mode. Switch position to adjust settings for each flight mode. Okay, fine. So I'm going to be in safe with this back. Now I'm going to hit next because we're doing safe setup. Right? AS3X gains must be turned, blah, 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 blah. Okay, whatever. This is where it asks a bunch of questions. And this is where you can make adjustments for the attitude of the plane. So like if it wanted to be pitch up too much or pitch down too much, and that has to do a lot of times with tail draggers or gliders that rest like this when you're initiating, okay? Because looking for home position, right? So I'm gonna leave those both at 0. Okay, now you gotta let this stuff load. See how it says safe mode inhibit? Change that to active. Self, level, and angle. I forget that second word. I always forget what it says. It's like angle something or another. You can change that to be just limited. You can do envelope where it just limits your bank angles, but it doesn't automatically level. And then transmitter model, that's not correct. So then you go back and that's what we want. So there's your limits.
AS3X mode.
See how it's off now?
Safe mode.
Pretty cool, huh? And now this is where it's gonna reboot, so I'll grab the wheel and I'm gonna click, just in case the motor decides to start. It's only happened to us twice.
Twice?
I think it's twice. And it's fine, it wasn't like anybody lost a hand. It just kind of momentarily made a fart and that was done.
Yeah.
Okay, so the receiver is rebooting. You'll note that we centered all of our surfaces before we even got safe set up because that's the natural order of things. You want to get your surface. Okay, so it's done. You can tell when it's rebooted because it stops doing its stuff. Now, we are in safe. Now AS3X. Now safe. Here's a quick test. Elevator up, elevator up. That's got to do with your limited bank angles and flight envelope. Roll left, AS3X. Safe, you have less throw. So that's one trick to tell if you're in safe. Now the other trick is I'm gonna test my throttle cut because it's just rebooted. Okay, it is working. The easiest and most definitive test for safe is to pick up the plane. It works better with small planes, obviously, and flip it over. Go to the middle and see it's gonna find the quickest route to level. That means if this wing is slightly up, it should be going this way. Now, if this is slightly down, what should happen?
It'll go the other way.
Yep, because it's gonna find the quickest route. Now, the other test is look at the elevator. Is the elevator up? Yes, it is. Is the elevator down? Yes, it is. Is it level?
Yep.
That's the way it's gonna fly. Are the ailerons level?
Yep.
That's the way it's gonna fly. Now, you hear anything?
Nope.
That's because we haven't given throttle yet. AS3X is not active until you've given throttle. Okay, throttle cuts back on, and get this. Now it's working. So AS3X is working, AS3X is working. I'm looking down the length of the plane, watching the rudder move. Rudder moves, elevator moves, and I'm looking for the correct direction. Rudder, aileron up, aileron up. You only have to look for one of the two, up or down. It's redundant. So now, for the camera crew, we're gonna try this. Can you follow this? Can you see it?
They can follow it, but I don't know if they're gonna be able to see it.
Okay, well, anyway, take my word for it.
Yep.
So now that we have that done, this plane is basically ready to fly with the exception of dual rates and expo. Okay, so we have all the control axis working. We have safe working. We have AS3X working. We have the master gain. And by the way, check this out. So gain up. All the way down. Midway. So when we take off for the first flight, we'll have the ability to make adjustments on the fly, pun intended. So we'll just roll this forward. Next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna clear the timer. We're gonna click. We're gonna go down to dual rates and expo. You're probably not gonna need a lot of dual rates and expo with a safe and AS3X equipped plane, but just in case, this is how you do it. So there's 3 control channels, aileron, elevator, and rudder. Those are the 3 primary control surfaces and ranges. What am I trying to say? Axis, control axis. So for ailerons, we're gonna go down here, we're gonna assign it to switch F. This is the way I always do it for every plane that I start with, unless there's some strange circumstance. So we'll do 5, then in the middle, we'll do 10, then at the bottom, we'll do 20, and then we'll drop down the rates to like 90, okay? So there you go. There's your 3 settings. We're gonna mimic those 3 settings on aileron, elevator, and rudder. Why do we do that, camera crew? You've only heard me explain it hundreds of times.
Why do we do dual rates and expo, or why do you set them all the same?
Why do we set them all the same?
Because that's the way you do it.
Yes.
Well, and you don't want them on multiple switches. If you need to change it on the fly, you need to be able to change it quickly and not be remembering which switch goes to which thing.
Yeah, because pilot fatigue at that moment would be a big issue.
Yep.
Okay, so now just to be clear, guys, what's gonna happen is you have full throw
If you push the rudder stick all the way over, it's gonna go all the way over. Now watch what happens to that rudder when I go to the bottom setting. It comes back a little bit. That's because there's two things that we're setting here. We're setting the rate and we're setting the expo. Expo is a curve that says at a certain amount, a certain position, we're gonna go back to basically full output, okay? At a certain position to the left and a certain position to the right, because there's obviously plus 100, minus 100, especially within the spectrum realm, okay, and all pulse width modulation controls. So you're gonna go up, you're gonna go down, right? So the second thing that's gonna happen is we're gonna limit on the rates how far is, okay? So let's say this is 100, okay? Well, let's say this is 75. Let's say this is 50. Let's say this is 30. Let's say this is 10. Let's say this is 5. This is 3, okay? So 100, you know, we're gonna limit. We still wanna be able to get there in case we're avoiding a tree or a building or whatever, but we just want it to be easier in the middle because that's where people have trouble, you know, differentiating between these very finite positions. So that's what Expo does, is it softens the middle of the stick. That's the way people describe it. Until you've used it, you won't understand. So just try it and you'll get it. You can look at the chart. The chart very clearly tells you what's happening. The problem is it's so subtle, it's hard to even imagine. Okay, so we're on the wrong control. See how that's moving? That's the rudder. So you can see that little bar moving. That is showing exactly what would happen to the output. Now, if I were to set this rate down to like 50%, watch what happens. See how that moves the line a lot, okay? So look at that, it barely moves. Then it moves all the way. Then it moves barely, okay?
And you always explain it, you want it to be softer in the center, especially for new pilots, because you tend to over control, right?
Well, it's just very hard, it's very finite. There's a lot of discrete positions on these sticks.
Because like when I fly, I always want to go all the way,
over.
all the way. Like,
yep.
And
so it helps people to feel more in control.
Yeah.
Also, the other thing is, it helps with muscle memory, but this is highly subjective, okay? I start in the middle, and then if I want more sensitive controls, I can go to this. That'll have my expo, but my rates are still at 100% anyway. But if I need it to be a little bit less sensitive because it's too touchy to get to the ground, I can double my expo and reduce the rates a little bit. Only 10%, because keep in mind, we have safe, we have AS3X. If I have problems, I just turn on safe. And then that will keep it level when I let go of the sticks. Now, that's provided everything works as expected. The other thing we have as a recourse is we can turn up the gains, which will make the stabilizer work. The problem is if you turn up the gains too high, then it's gonna overcorrect and it's gonna induce an oscillation. So that's what you wanna avoid. So really the idea behind a properly adjusted stabilizer is that your plane will never oscillate even at full throttle. That's why I still think that there's a long way that we can go with these controllers to where we could have speed sensitive stabilization. That would be cool. So anyway, we're so close. We're so close to having that. But that'd be sweet because then you could have a very fast jet that is rock solid going 115 miles an hour and it's rock solid going 15 or 17 or 18 miles an hour right before touchdown. So that'd be super cool. Anyway, it's the way it works on real planes. So why can't we do it on radio controlled airplanes? Because it all costs money. So this is the same for all three control axes, and I shouldn't have beat up rudder, but really ailerons and elevator are more critical in most cases. So that gives you a full suite of setup on this plane. This is a good beginner plane from everything I understand. As you know, we film the Unbox build and radio setup before we fly. So we're making some assumptions that it's gonna be great. The thing feels good, it feels solid, it's not overly heavy. I didn't like some of the features, like the nose gear is ugly, but I don't really care as long as it works good and I think it's gonna work fine. I also thought it was a little bit weird that we had to bend that, but no big deal. Again, it's not a major issue. I think the alternative method would be to just take this with needle nose before you put it in and give it just like maybe a 4 or 5 degree change so that it's like this. And then that would point it out at the right direction. All the surfaces were really close, including the elevator. Of course, we were the ones that set the elevator, okay? I like the way the foam looks. This EPP is good, strong stuff. It's going, or excuse me, EPO, I misspoke there. The wings were a little bit weird to lock in, but I think once they're locked, you're fine. Also, I don't like the fact that it's so small to get your hands in. So we put the receiver on the top, but you don't have to do that. That's just an option. Now, the other thing too is we said we were gonna verify that the position was correct in forward programming. So hopefully we made that clear to you. But if the control surfaces move in the right direction, then it doesn't matter because that's the whole spatial awareness. That's what it's finding, okay? So also we've talked about how to name the model. We've talked about how to name the modes. We've talked about flight modes. We've talked about everything but thrust reverse because we can't do thrust reverse on this ESC that I know of. You may be able to flip the thrust by going with a programming cable or going in and doing the controls, you know, one by one. But in this case, that's one of the very few features that you would get if you wanted to add an avian ESC along with the AR631. Plus that would give you full feedback for telemetry on your pack. We do have some telemetry, and let's talk about that for a minute, just so you guys can see kind of what we do have. We have tons of telemetry actually, but most of it's totally useless to us. So the telemetry is largely used for forward programming. Okay, so if you scroll over here, you can see the different information. A lot of G-force stuff, all that crap. Totally useless. RPMs, receiver voltage. Okay, so there's your receiver voltage, which is important if you're running, you know, you have like the amplitude of the antenna. You know, it's like, come on.
I always need to know that. That's really
well,
important.
I mean, it's pretty important. You don't want to lose control of your plane, but like, are you going to sit there and look at that on a screen, or are you going to be looking at the plane? I mean, there's only so much you can do as a, as a pilot. So my predisposition, and I've been talking to Horizon about this for a year, over a year, is that especially with what these things cost, we should be getting pack voltage. I don't care if it's nominal voltage. I don't need to have every cell, you know, temperature, you know, and imbalance values and things like that. I mean, that's helpful and it is really nice, especially on EDFs where you're really pushing stuff and you might have a pack that sags even on a smart pack. But let's be honest, guys, Gen 2 smart packs should not be sagging. You should not have a sagging cell. They should be balancing while you're flying. Gen 1's a little bit less sophisticated, a little bit less capable of heat sinking, so they're, you know, more likely to have an imbalance. And if you're using just like a dumb pack that's not smart, they're not going to necessarily automatically balance, but who cares? Whatever. The point is, I want to know nominal voltage. I don't care if it's three numbers that are added together and taken apart and then pretended to be separated like they do on some of these, I believe. I don't care. I just want to see what the voltage is so that I know when to land. But on this plane, what we'll do is we'll take off, we'll fly, we'll do our thing, we'll respect the timer of 12.5 minutes, might be a little bit long. Maybe we should set it to 10 minutes to be on the safe side.
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll jump in here real quick. Guys, I hate it when I make changes right at the last second because some of you guys have already tuned out like an hour and a half ago. So 10 minutes. Okay, so 10 minutes. We'll land, we'll check the voltage. It can't be that hard. We'll take the XBC 100 battery checker, which is this thing. If you don't have one of these in your tool bag, a very good tool to have. You can plug in the smart battery. You can also use a smart battery to energize and test servos, which is nice. You may have noticed I didn't do that earlier because I'm too lazy. That's pretty typical. I only do it if I really need to. So we can open this thing up and just quickly test that voltage tomorrow when we're going. You'll also note that our battery position was pretty much where it was for CG. It was super easy, and there is a strap in here. Let's look at that real quick because we may not talk about it in the flight. It's the medium grade straps. Nothing fancy, nothing to write home about, but also not insufficient, and that was obviously not held down very good. So we're gonna basically keep that piece of Velcro for another application, given that it's not even holding on there, okay?
Okay.
So this will go in there and it will do its thing. And then usually what I like to do on planes anymore, we've got so many of them anymore that it's very hard to keep straight what goes in what plane. So I'm just gonna write on here somewhere, 1300, 1300, 3S. And 30C is what we're using. The manual calls for 25C. These packs have been really resilient to puffing and things like that, so I don't think we're gonna have a problem with a 30C. Obviously, it's more than 25. And I think that this plane could probably take a bigger battery too. I would say a 2200 should fit in there, especially the smart packs. They tend to be a little bit smaller than some of the competitive brands, although they've all gotten a little bit smaller, to be honest, not just the smart packs. Okay, so now that we've done all this, usually what I recommend is just shut everything off, do a full reboot, make sure everything works, and then you're ready to go to the flying field. As you can see behind me, it's dark. So we had one of those days where it was like 1,000,000 miles an hour wind all day. So we really didn't push the issue to get this thing done. We probably could have got it done for today, and I'm glad we didn't, because we would have had like 10 minutes and it would have been windy.
Yep.
So let's plug this thing in. Oh, we want to turn on the transmitter first, turn our gains to where we want them. And if you're concerned about fail safe and things like that, the fail safe should always default to throttle low. But if you have concerns about that, read the manual that comes with the receiver and you can go through a fail safe procedure. You can also set up a panic button. I never set up panic buttons. Just get used to turning on safe if you need it. Like, how hard is that compared to going up here and hitting this button? Like, I just don't see that that's that helpful. But if you want to add it, it's like a 2-second process. So, all right, so let's plug this in. Throttle cut is on, by the way, I verified. Okay, so we're just plugging this in. This is a Gen 1 smart pack too. You could probably tell from the balance lead. Not that it really changes things much. Okay, so what we're doing is we're running through all the control surfaces one last time. Elevator up, elevator down, roll left, or yaw left, yaw right. Steerable left, steerable right. Roll left, roll right. Take off flaps, landing flaps, corrections correct, up, down. I always check them in all the modes. Then we shouldn't see anything happen because we're in AS through X. Let's verify. Yep, nothing happened. Now let's turn on safe, and it did work. You'll note that it's working even with flap runs. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So safe is working. Now we're gonna get this so that we're safe, and we are going to, not to be confused with sensor-rated flight envelope. Throttle cuts off. Okay, there's throttle. Throttle cuts back on. Now we're gonna check our everything's, turning up the gain all the way. Roll up, up, down. That was kind of hard to tell. I wanna hold it this way. Left, right, up, down. Okay, everything's working. Gains back to the middle position. And the last thing we haven't talked about is the prop, which seems to be terribly out of balance. So before we get too much further, let's take a look at that. I'm just looking at it, and I have a reflection on the counter that's got this light up here. And I'm just looking at where the tip, sometimes you'll have a prop that's got a little bend on it, okay? So that's what I'm checking for right now. So my hand's in a safe spot, securing the plane. Throttle cut is off. I think pretty good, about 50%. Gets a little bit nutty at the top. Now, that could be symptomatic of a couple of different things. The motor could be loose. The prop could be out of balance. The spinner could be out of balance. The spinner could be wanting to pop off, but I'm not sure what it is. So the first thing I do is I come in here. Well, that came off easy. Actually, I'd like to test it with that thing off. Let's test it with that thing off. Okay, throttle cuts off. That seemed a little bit better. Did it seem to you?
Yeah.
Okay, not a good sign for that spinner. So,
is the spinner necessary?
The spinner is necessary if you don't want it to look really, really ugly.
Well, I mean, everybody's looking at the nose gear anyway.
That's true. Okay, so tape. Yes, I know. You're thinking to yourself, how are you going to get that to balance, Brian? Skills pay the bills, baby. I'm going to put a piece of tape here, and then I'm going to let it spin. I'm going to try to put approximately the same size piece of tape on the other side. And you're thinking, Brian, there's no way you're going to get that right. I agree. It's probably not going to work. But we're going to try it anyway, and we're going to see how that does. Okay, you good? Mm-hmm. so as expected, that didn't work. So I'm going to show you my normal protocol for balancing an inexpensive prop. There's two sides of this equation. There's one here, there's one there. Here and there. It doesn't matter which one's which. I just put a piece of tape on there of an irregular size. I don't even care what size it is. It doesn't matter. I want to see if it gets better or if it gets worse. Actually seems like it got better. Do you think it got better?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we're going to take the same piece of tape. Remember, we're not super concerned about this piece of tape. This is just a test. Okay, now we're going to go to the other side and see if it's better or worse with the same piece of tape. Yes, the tape could be causing an aerodynamic issue, so we just don't worry about that yet. Way worse. Okay, so we were correct. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find that tape, and it improved the characteristics. So now we want to repeat that process. Go a little bit bigger. We know which side we want it on now. On the leading edge. It's got to be the leading edge of the wing, or the prop in this case, rather. And if you have a little bit of a contour on the blade, which is pretty typical, you can trim this. And then I like to pull it over in the center first, and that'll make it a nice clean tape. Okay, you good? Mm-hmm. Throttle cuts off. That sounds so much better.
Yeah.
Throttle cuts on. Now remember, we're not going for perfection here. If you want to get this more perfect, use a balancer, take the prop off, do it all that way. I just find that you waste a lot of time doing that because you get about the same results doing this. And I've had people complain about it for years, and it's kind of like, well, okay, fine. Use the prop balancer if you wish. We have one. They're expensive. What do they cost, like 60 bucks or something?
I don't know.
I've used it like 4 or 5 times.
Maybe.
And the planes I've used it on, I had similar to worse results, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, whatever, I'm not gonna waste my time on that. Okay. Okay, I think we overshot just a hair. So we're gonna take off 1/3 of that, and then I think we're gonna call it good. It sounds about 50 times better than it did when we first started because it sounded like it was gonna rip itself apart. Keep in mind, if you have too much vibration, vibration causes damage to other things, okay? Okay, now, the second part of this test is we're gonna check the spinner. And normally with the spinner, I don't get super excited about it just because the fact that you don't have a ton of control over it. You gotta take it off, put some tape on the inside. Do the same test on this. I'm just gonna go on the outside because I'm being lazy. And I just wanna see if I can get it. So I just did the one side. There's 2 sides. I don't know which side's which. It doesn't matter. We haven't marked anything. We're gonna know because it's on one side. Call me crazy, that seemed a little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, so now we're just gonna confirm my theory by taking that piece of tape off. Yes, this seems a little bit simple, but sometimes the simplest way is the best way. Okay, there's also that piece of tape that's holding the spinner on, which again, not real fond of that, but it is what it is. Now this is on the other side. I'd say that's worse.
Yep.
Guys, this is a little bit of a subjective thing, but I'm gonna tell you, if you do this, if you go through the trouble, you may have better results. And to be honest, it doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be perfect. This isn't like a manned aircraft. You're not gonna lose your kids, you know, if the thing vibrates a little bit. But you do wanna be careful. You don't wanna have accidents. But, you know, it's not a manned aircraft. It doesn't need to be 100% perfectly balanced, you know, so you can get 0.1 gallons per hour better fuel economy. I would say that's a vast improvement, and I'm satisfied with it. Are you satisfied?
I'm thrilled.
Okay, so what have we covered today? We've covered how to put it together, which was super easy. We've covered how to set up the radio. We've covered how to mount the radio. We've covered how to set up AS3X and safe. And we've covered how to balance the prop in a halfway manner. And I want to show you guys one more thing, because now that I talked about it, I'm feeling bad because there's somebody that's going to be like, but I wanted to do I wanted to do that. Okay, go back to forward programming. I know. Gyro setting. Save settings. Safe. Safe is on.
AS3X mode.
Okay.
Safe mode.
This is where I always get confused. Still new for us too, guys. System setup. Ah, here it is. Safe panic mode setup. Okay. Throttle to pitch. Attitude trim. Safe, fail-safe. Fail-safe angles. Okay. So panic. This is just how hard this is. Oh, look at that. That was fun. Go back in. Evidently, you have to navigate there in a certain order. There we go. Panic channel can now be set. See, nothing's set to that. So auxiliary 2 is not being used, but we already have it assigned. So I'm going to walk out of here. So I'm going to go to System Setup, disconnect RF, scroll down to Channel, Assign. See how auxiliary 2 is automatically set to B? I'm going to change that to I. Okay? Now when I go to monitor mode, when I press I, auxiliary 2 actuates. When I use my flaps, auxiliary 2 is no longer tied to it because that's switch B. When I press I, it moves from 100 to minus 100, okay? Please note that I'm using up a channel to do this. Forward programming, gyro settings, save settings. Whoops, sorry, it's down in system setup for some reason.
10,
Panic.
9, 8,
Okay, so it says auxiliary 2,
6, 5,
delay, active.
2, 1.
You can make a delay, and I believe that is to stopping panic mode. So like when you press it, it's going to stay active for a period of time, but I don't know where to set that period. Okay. Panic F mode, inhibit. So you can actually make, a different mode.
AS3X.
So if you were using like a 3-position switch.
Yeah, so like if you wanted to have all the trims disabled for that, you could, like if somebody screwed up the trims, you could say panic and then the trims are ignored or something like that, okay? You can also make it do things, okay? Right. Okay. You can set up a throttle to elevator. Throttle cuts on. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be active, which is good. And then you can do safe, fail-safe flight mode, okay? All right, so now let's show you how that works. So suppose you're flying along. Let's go ahead and activate AS3X. Throttle cuts off. Okay, so we've started, AS3X should be working, and it is. Okay, we'll turn the gains way up so you can see. Yep, everything's working. You're flying along, having a good old time. Okay, AS3X and safe are both working, as you can see. You're in some weird position like this, you're out of safe. That should bring you level, but you'll note that it didn't do anything because I must not have actually set it right yet. Throttle cuts back on. Okay, or I wonder if we need to switch the direction of auxiliary 2. Let's try that. Okay, we'll do that first. And then we'll go back into forward programming and see what we did wrong. Okay, so safe is off. See, safe is off. Now it's on with the switch. Now I press that button and nothing happens. Okay, so we didn't actually get it activated yet. So the panic button is what we're working on right now. So I'm going to go back into the menu structure, servo setup, travel, reverse, auxiliary 2. That's what's tied to switch I. Switch I is here, the bind button. See how it's changing state? So that should be doing what needs to be done. I think I know what's going on. So within forward programming, we're gonna go to gyro setting, system setup, panic, safe fail safe, panic. See how it says the delay, I want to shut the delay off.
Safe mode.
I forget which one it is. Can you tell which one it is? I think it's flight mode 2. Okay, so now we're gonna try this. Okay, so now we're out of the menu. Wanna make sure that safe is off for the sake of our test. It is off, now it's on. Now when I press panic, see, nothing.
But turn safe on and press panic.
Shouldn't have to have safe on for panic to work. Okay, so safe is on. See, nothing. So I don't know exactly what we're doing wrong, but we're gonna figure it out and come right back. Okay, so we went back into the forward programming. I figured out where I was screwing up. Gyro settings, safe settings. Okay. It's under AS3X settings.
AS3X mode. Safe.
No, flight mode setting. I'm sorry, guys. There it is.
AS3X mode.
They kind of buried this stuff. See how it says panic?
X mode. Safe mode.
Now it's active.
Oh.
Okay. Now, I believe this is all we were missing. Okay. Throttle cut's tested, by the way. Okay, so we are currently in safe. So as you can see, it's trying to auto level. Safe is off. Now, in a weird angle, see, it's still not doing it. So we have an assignment that's not been properly assigned yet. So this is why I don't do panic, because it's not necessary. All you have to do is just go into safe. But if you really want it, we'll help you figure it out. And we figure out stuff together here on YouTube, on Brian Phillips RC. Okay, so flight mode setup.
Safe mode.
High throttle to pitch, low throttle to pitch. Okay, that's all correct.
X mode. Safe.
Oh, you see how it says panic? I wonder if you have to have it on within AS3X as well.
Okay.
Okay, so that might have been what we were doing wrong. Okay, so we're not in safe. See how as soon as I press this, it goes into safe, okay? But it's not, there's no delay, okay?
Okay.
So it's gonna do the same thing either way. So, click down to forward programming. So yeah, as usual, you gotta go into 4 different menus to actually activate it. Gyro settings, flight mode setup. So you have to have this in safe mode. You have to have it active. Panic is really not necessary in safe mode, right?
Right.
So I think we should inactivate that, because what's gonna happen is people will be in safe, they'll hit panic, and then it's gonna hold them still until they crash into something. So now we can go to system setup. We can go to safe panic menu setup. Let's go to panic, and then let's do delay, active. Okay? And then you can do this. This is gonna tighten your tolerances for your angles. That's what this is. Instead of being like 60, 90, or whatever, it's gonna tighten it. So like if you're pulling up even in safe, it's gonna tighten it. So I guess we could turn it back on for safe too. Okay, so we'll go back here, we'll go back to safe settings, flight mode setup. And then we'll turn panic back on within safe as well.
Safe mode.
So you can panic in any mode now. Seriously.
Panicking in all of them.
You can panic in all modes. Okay. Okay, so you're in AS3X now, you're flying along, having a good old time, you panic, you let go, and then it goes back. See, watch, panic, it's trying to find level, you panic. Okay, so you're not level. You don't have any limited bank angles. You panic, it's gonna bring you to this angle, not this, okay? So you're holding your stick all the way over. You're holding your stick all the way over. You're still level. You panic, that's gonna limit how much you can do that, okay? Panic, the delay is what, like 3-4 seconds, okay?
Right.
That makes sense? So elevator, panic, it's gonna limit how much you can panic. See? That's neutral. That's panic.
Right.
When I let go, it goes down.
Okay.
So that makes sense. So now in safe, let's see how it responds. So you've got safe on, it's automatically leveling, trying to bring you back to level. When you panic, nothing, okay? Because there's just nothing to do. It's already basically doing it. But here's the catch. What's gonna happen is if you're giving it input like this in safe, it's gonna limit how much you can then control it. So it's gonna, if you're overcorrecting it, which first of all, in safe, it's kind of hard to overcorrect the plane anyway. But let's suppose you were all up, all down, all forward. When you panic, for a few seconds, it's going to bring the plane into a more neutral attitude, not totally level, but if you're giving it input, it's going to try to cut back as much as you have. Then it'll bring it to level when you let go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
If you've ever seen a plane that has panic mode, that's the way it works. Your plane is flying along, you're doing something stupid because you're a really new pilot and you make a mistake, and then you're like, I don't know what to do, panic. Well, then it brings it level and true, okay? So that's what you want. So here's the thing I don't get about safe, is that wouldn't it just be easier to just flip the switch to safe? So that's just my take, and that's part of the reason why we don't set up panic, is because you saw that process. It's not hard, it's just like you have to go into each subsequent menu to make all these decisions that you probably don't understand. I mean, I barely understand, I've been doing this for years.
Right.
So that being said, it's sort of a misnomer to me, and so it probably is to you too. But the idea is now we can demonstrate what that looks like, and you can say, hey, you know what, I hate the way that works, or you can say, I love the way it works. Remember, this is about the Ranger, not necessarily about the AR631, Safe, or AS3X, but we want to bring you guys a little bit of new information each time that we do these builds. Also, now into perpetuity, I can say there's a reason I don't do panic. Just go back and watch the Ranger video, right?
Yep.
So if you guys are wanting to know how you can return the favor, if we did help you on this video, the way you can do it is to buy this beautiful plane for yourself. And you're like, well, how does that help us? It helps to fund our channel. You buy from these guys in our links. Small commissions go to us. That funds our channel. And then you get your awesome plane. You pay no extra. You get all your RC bucks, whatever bonuses you get, your credit card miles, whatever it is. You get all that. We get a small commission from the guys that make these planes, not necessarily the manufacturers all the time. Sometimes it's a distributor or a company that we work with. It doesn't really matter. The point is that funds our channel. If you just hate that, if you hate the way that that works, and you think that somehow we're gonna like lie to you about how awesome this plane is, then just do the Patreon and do PayPal. Those are two ways. The most direct way of funding our channel would be with PayPal gifts. It's one time. There's virtually no fees. If you do Patreon, there are quite a few fees that are withheld, but we don't add any special benefits, which means that you don't pay sales tax also on top of that. So we've made some strategic decisions to try to give you guys different ways to help us if you'd like, but really at the end of the day, this is all we ask. Come back, watch the videos, like them, and subscribe. And we know that you guys are gonna be back because we're gonna try to teach you some stuff as we go through this process. We're learning a little bit every day. This plane, we hope it's as good as it looks. We've had a couple of gripes with it, but they're pretty minor.
Yeah.
To be honest, we really like the Cessnas. It's just a cool looking plane. And if you don't like this one, if it's too big, this thing is sweet, okay? They're both really good planes. And if you don't like either of these, we also have a big gigantic one that we just did the other day, which is 84 inches, and that's the Carbon Z Cessna 150T, beautiful plane, love it. It's a tail dragger, incidentally, instead of a tricycle like this. And if you don't like any of those planes, we got tons more below, but really, we've only got, what, like 1,600 videos to date. So if that's not enough to keep you busy on a boring Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever day you're watching this, I don't know what else is. So without further ado, come back, like the video, subscribe, buy this stuff from the links. You'll be supporting us, and that will help us to bring you better, newer, more exciting content. And we really do appreciate you guys, the best audience in YouTube history. Come back for more.